Baby, you are gonna go broke showing turkeys like these. It's turkey time. Gobble, gobble.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Let's Talk Turkeys. I'm your host, Movie Miss, and I'm being joined this week by my co-host, as always, Drive-In Dave. Hello, sir.
Hello.
Are you excited about today's film?
Excited isn't the exact word I would use. I like this movie, but I can't say anything gets me excited about it.
I'm excited to talk about it. Let's put it that way.
Okay, yeah. Because I was going to say, I also feel a little uncomfortable saying excited, knowing that there's a half-naked man on screen. I don't want people to get confused.
Oh, I didn't mind that part at all.
I figure most women would not. And yeah.
So we're discussing the 1987 film, Masters of the Universe.
There is a place where legends are born, where the light confronts the dark, a world of incredible mystery, magic, and adventure. A world where colossal powers will collide in a battle to control the universe. The place is Earth. The time is now. Masters of the Universe. Dolph Lundgren is He-Man. Frank Langella is Skeletor. And Meg Foster is Evil Lynn. Masters of the Universe. Coming to Earth this summer.
For those of you that don't know, Dolph Lundgren is He-Man. And this movie, we're discussing it because it's a turkey. Rotten Tomato critic score of 22% and audience of 41%. So a turkey across the board. But I feel like nostalgia is a thing with this for me because this is not a good movie by any stretch.
It's better than you think it would be. Like just knowing like what you know about it. Like if you haven't seen it, but you know like scenes from it or, you know, people talked about it. It sounds like it's just complete and utter crap. And then you watch it and you're like, okay, this isn't bad. Like I can watch it. Like I don't love it, but I can watch it.
It's watchable. Yes, that's a great word for it. So, okay, it's rated PG and they wanted to market it toward the kiddies because He-Man was a toy creation by Mattel before it was a cartoon, before it was this motion picture and so on. So I feel like they tried to keep the violence down. There's no, a little bit of blood, no guts. Like it's a movie for kids that's not for kids. Like a child, I would think would be bored to tears watching this movie because in an hour and 45 minutes, about 23 minutes of plot happens stretched over that time. Like if this is a boring movie with several exceptions.
Yeah, and we'll get a little bit into some of the issues I have with that when we start talking about it, but there's a lot with this movie.
So Canon Films and had a hand in this, which always makes me warm and fuzzy when I see that because nostalgia. And then directed by Gary Goddard. This was his only live action movie credit. And I can see why.
Yeah, I was going to say the exact same thing. I can understand why this did not like launch his career into superstardom.
And then again, with the feels, it's produced by Golan and Globus. And again, when Golan Globus Productions comes up on the screen, you know you're in for sort of a wacky treat because I cherry picked a few of these. They're responsible for Alan Quartermain, Cobra, Cyborg, Delta Force, Invaders from Mars, Life Force, Over the Top. Like certain movies just from the 80s, you just have a soft spot for whether they're good or not, and they're Golan Globus.
It's like, to me, 80s has some of the best cheesy movies that should not be good. Because like you mentioned Cyborg, and I think I remember that being like my first Jean-Claude Van Damme movie.
Me too.
And it was just so awesome to watch. But like you go back and watch it now and you can pick apart everything that was wrong with it. But like as a kid going to the local video store and you see this and you're like kung fu. And then, I think the only problem I had was, you know, like most Jean-Claude movies in the 80s, we always get to see his ass, which I can do without.
Right. Well, we had to sell the tickets.
yeah. It's like, you know, the guys are going to go for the action and the girls are going to go for the ass. So.
And nobody was going for the script. So
No.
that's why we had the ass.
Exactly.
So this one was written by David Odell, and then there was an uncredited rewrite by the director. And I would argue none of it matters because the script is just bad no matter how you slice it.
I would say it doesn't matter except for the fact this is where the love, I'm not going to say love-hate relationship, but the love lukewarm relationship happens
Okay.
with me in this movie is that when this came out as a kid, well, I mean, I didn't even get to see it in the theaters as a kid. I didn't know it existed. Like around 10 years old, something like that. I had a friend that was huge into He-Man.
The
He had-
toys.
yeah, he had all the toys. We would play with them. And then this movie, he got it, tried to make me watch it. I did not grow up a He-Man fan. I was G.I. Joe and Transformers and Turtles. Those were my things. He-Man just did not work for me.
Was it the bad haircut?
Like everything about it, just like the figures themselves just looked awkward, like little people that were on steroids.
That's accurate.
Yeah, they're horrible looking figures to me. But later on, being a comic book nerd, my brother read on, I believe it was Comic Book Resources. There's a column on there, Comic Book Legends, and they talked to the director, and he is a huge Jack Kirby fan. Apparently, now I thought, I misunderstood him. I thought he said that this was like the director's version of Jack Kirby's The New Gods. When I went back and actually read it, he said, no, Jack Kirby was a huge influence on this movie to the point where he even wanted Kirby to do the designs. for the
Wow.
movie. When you see the movie, you could see influence in there. That, like when I saw that, I got to appreciate it a little bit more because I would watch it, and then like watching it more and more, my love of bad movies came out. I was like, okay, this is good.
So a couple things to note. Budget was 22 million. They threw money at this. Mattel was involved because of the toy products and the cartoon being popular. They were hot and heavy to get this made. It only did 17.3 at the box office. Wah wah.
I would say that shocks me, but it's like it shocks me that it didn't do worse, and then it shocks me that it did that well.
So also worth mentioning, the cartoon, like I said, came first. It was 83 to 85. The toys were around 82. Mattel really, really wanted this to happen. And I guess, according to my research, they were a pain in the production's ass on this movie. They wanted to oversee and change everything. They also ran a contest, Mattel did, to give one child the opportunity to be in the movie. And I'll share this on social media. I took a screenshot and we'll get to it when we get to the plot. But the little boy that won the contest, my heart goes out to him, and we'll talk about why. But they were heavily involved in this movie. And I think that's why the too many chefs in the kitchen thing, you know?
Yeah, because it does feel like there was a lot of behind the scenes manipulation going on as to how this movie was going to get made. It feels a little bit like there's a couple different things happening in this movie that would have made good movies in and of itself. And they just kind of blended it all together into a jumbled mess.
So top billed cast for Masters of the Universe is Dolph Lundgren, Frank Langella, the amazing Frank Langella.
And can I just say thank you for saying his name first, because I was going to butcher the hell out of it.
I am obsessed with him. I love him. He always plays, in my opinion, a wonderful villain / monster in movies. I love him.
Yeah, he's one of those actors that like I did not grow up really watching and liking, and then it's like more I started to see him, I was like, oh, this is really good. And to show how amazing of an actor he is, he makes this whole movie.
That was my note, because next I was going to say also top billed is Meg Foster as his sidekick, Evil Lynn. The two of them feel like they are in a completely different movie. They feel like they are in a horror / drama, like they're giving it 110%.
Oh yeah, I literally wrote that in the notes of like my favorite villain aside from Skeletor is Evil Lynn, because she was so great in this.
Yeah, I really feel like they were in a different movie. So the rest of the top billed cast is Billy Barty, Courtney Cox, and Robert Duncan McNeil. And I will note Billy Barty as Gwildor, our little Turkeyverse connection. He was the cameraman at the UHF station in the film UHF that we just covered. And we can get to everybody else as we go. IMDb plot. The heroic warrior He-Man battles against the evil Lord Skeletor and his armies of darkness for control of Castle Grayskull. So if you don't know He-Man cartoon and He-Man lore, that really doesn't tell you much.
Actually, no, that pretty much tells you everything you need to know. I mean, there's never been a plot to He-Man.
There still isn't.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell by the name alone. He-Man is the cheesiest name in the world. I mean, it's like, why not just call him Man Man?
Yes, it was very weird that he is, if you know anything about He-Man or the cartoon, he is Prince Adam when he is not transformed into He-Man by grabbing the sword, holding it up, and yelling, "I have the power." He gets transformed into the warrior He-Man. That's not what happens in this movie. He is He-Man all the way through. And I do have to give props to his amazing trailer park mullet.
I miss that so much in movies. I am a fan of, I want the mullet to come back so bad. I mean, not that I would have one because I can't rock any kind of hairstyle, but I would love the mullet to return.
Yeah, he's seriously rocking it. And I will take it over the page boy weird haircut that Prince Adam has in the cartoons. So I was okay with it. I feel like you can't ugly up Dolph Lundgren anyway. They can try.
All right. I mean, I know I made the joke about not wanting to see a half naked man on screen for this long, despite the fact that I do like Conan, but that's a different story. He is at this point in his career, he is a damn gorgeous man. So
a specimen, yes. And they played it up. He was oiled up, hairless, muscular, like, and that's the other thing. You just made a tie to Conan. This was very much a leather diaper, sword and sandal type of feel when He-Man was fighting and on the screen, but he feels out of place, not just in present day America, but even on his world, Eternia. He seems to be a one-off.
this is where it goes back to the, like I said, several different movies blending together, because it's like you see the Conan stuff, the sword and sorcery, everything like that. There's the Star Wars vibe with the stormtrooper looking guys and the laser guns and everything. And it's like, there's so much blended together in this movie that it just, they couldn't pull it off.
All right, let's jump in. I'm dying to get to this.
Okay.
So the movie begins with the Cannon Films Golden Globus cards and the top billed cast. And then we get some foreboding type music and a shot of Castle Grayskull. As we get the narration, the words of the narration, when a movie opens with that or like scrolling words on a screen, you already lost me. I'm not a fan.
Yeah, I mean, it's I can handle it in certain, like Star Wars makes it work. I can handle it in Star Wars because they got to give you the backstory. It's short. I did have to ask the question, if you watch this movie, hit me up because I want to know if I'm the only one that got Superman vibes from the opening credits.
So in my notes, I swear to God, that is coming in about 30 seconds. So the narrator tells us Castle Grayskull, this is where it is. This is how it's been for centuries. There's been a sorceress. She's kept the universe in harmony, but that harmony is now being threatened by the forces of darkness who want to take control of the castle and once they have the castle, then they will be able to be the master of the universe. I'm a little fuzzy on how that all works.
I'm a little bit more offended by the fact that it's like, why is it always the forces of darkness? Why is it never the forces of like just a group of people on the side? They're like, we're kind of bored, instead of watching Netflix all day, let's just go try and conquer the world for the hell of it.
Right? So then we get title card, very colorful and cartoony, very directed at the children. The music swells, and this is where I wrote, we get a very similar to Superman 1978 music score. And it was done by Bill Conti, who also did Rocky, The Karate Kid, The Right Stuff. He got an Oscar for that score. So this man made some scores.
And somehow I feel like this is not on his resume.
Well, it really does sound like a Superman ripoff.
It does. I mean, it kind of takes me back to how like Huey Lewis and the News tried to sue Ray Parker Jr. for the Ghostbusters theme. It's like once you hear it, you're like, okay, there's definitely a ripoff coming on here.
And then the credits start to roll. And I've mentioned this before. We get a full 90 seconds of just credits. I don't like that. I like when I get credits over movie. Like, let's get going. Let's get this ball rolling. No, 90 seconds I clocked it of credits. But like you said, Superman vibe. These credits are coming at you and it looks like Superman pretty much. It's nuts. I was like, holy shit, I totally see and Star Wars with the space balls, like space background.
Yeah, like I said, they ripped off a bunch of different things, threw it in there. It's cheesy and stupid, and I just can't stop grinning when I think about it or like watch it. I'm just like kind of sitting there bopping in my chair, like, oh, this is gonna be fun.
Then an explosion happens on screen, and we open on a scene very reminiscent of Star Wars because we get a Darth Vader-ish entrance from Skeletor. You got troopers lined up on either side of the hall there, the throne room, all in black. They look like black stormtroopers with weird spaceball type helmets. And Skeletor in his big black robe comes in to the menacing music. And I was like, whoa, what movie did I turn on? What is this?
Before I get into my traditional smartass comments, I do want to point out that I love the scene so much because, I mean, I've always appreciated movies. I'm appreciating them even more now that my girlfriend is like doing some film stuff, and it's like I'm kind of learning even more behind the scenes. This scene is shot so well to like when Skeletor is banging the cane onto the ground, and then the shot will like kind of start zooming in with each bang. The atmosphere, everything about this is just such a well shot movie. And that, at least in this scene, it's really well shot. Now, as far as my smartass comment goes, am I the only person that sees movies like this where there's bridges all over the place, people lined up, walking around, and there's like 150-foot drop down to a pure fucking nothing at the bottom, like it's probably like lava or something. And there's no safety rail.
And why is it inside the throne room?
Exactly.
What?
Yes, this should be like outside somewhere. I mean, like this
Yes.
is like you kind of like picture something like this. Is this how every room looks? Is there a laundry room somewhere in Castle Grayskull where like little kids are like trying to do their laundry and they're falling off constantly?
Decrease the surplus population. So, okay, Skeletor makes his way up to the throne, and his right-hand person is Evil Lynn, and that's Meg Foster. And a bit of trivia for her. If you don't know who she is, and this is your first time seeing her, these amazing light blue ice piercing eyes that she has are her real eyes. They weren't contacts. And she did just a tear of stuff around this time period. She did Stepfather 2. She did this. She did They Live. Oh, I'm drawing a blank. She did so many movies, and those eyes are like...
I mean, yeah, the eyes are always what drew me to her. And I thought they were contacts. And then like I said, I saw the trivia thing where they said they were going to give her contacts because apparently that's not Evil Lynn's natural eye color. I don't know how they know that, because if you watch the cartoons, a little bit that I've seen, I'm pretty sure her eye color is black, like every 80s cartoon. But they let her keep her eye color. And I was like, that was good. That was smart, because that made her look so like she stands out.
It works. And I will also post on socials a close-up picture of her face, but combined with her look, her makeup, everything, and her eyes, she just looks amazing. They did a great job on that.
Between Skeletor and Evil Lynn, they are two of the I want to say maybe 3 or 4 characters in this movie that actually have amazing designs and look great. I can only pick apart one part of Skeletor, and that's when you get the close-up of the face and the nose just doesn't look right.
Right.
It looks like there's like a mesh black screen covering up the nostrils.
Because there is. Yes, you're right, though. That does look like shit compared to the amazing job they did everywhere else on his face with the latex and stuff. So Evil Lynn now tells him, we've almost conquered all the people, but He-Man is still leading the resistance. So now we learn He-Man, which also really, really funny name. I am He-Man. Like, what? Whoever came up with that at Mattel.
It is like the laziest creative thing I've ever heard. It's like, okay, well, we know he's a man, we know he's strong, but we have to further identify the fact that he's a man and he has a penis. So let's put he in front of it.
All I could think of the Little Rascals with the He-Man Woman Haters Club. All right, so we get a close-up shot now of Skeletor's face, and like you said, they did an amazing job. You can just see a little bit in the upper eye socket where the latex doesn't quite connect and he's moving his eyes, but he's such a phenomenal actor that he's really got to act through this latex piece and through this makeup, and his eyes do a lot.
I mean, this is like, I think where I fell in love with his acting, because he can make this movie work, this character work. And then it's like, I just respect the hell out of him because he wanted this role. He wanted to play this because his kid was a He-Man fan, and he was still proud of this role. Where I feel like everybody else was, if you told them, oh, I love Master of the Universe, they'd probably slap the shit out of you for even mentioning the name.
I always think of that damn bitch, Helen Hunt, when people try to bring up Girls Just Want to Have Fun, and she pretends like, what are you talking about? But Sarah Jessica Parker's like, oh my God, yes, that movie that gave me my big break. You can always tell the difference, right? So Frank Langella being like, yeah, I was Skeletor, my kid wanted me to be Skeletor. Like, fuck yeah, dude.
Yeah, and it's like, if you could have met him, it would have been like, dude, you like, not only was it awesome that you're admitting it, but you rocked that role.
Yeah. So then we see that off to the side of the throne, we have the sorceress who's been imprisoned in a beam of light, which comes from Skeletor's powers.
You could almost say she was blinded by the light.
So did you notice the actress that's playing the sorceress?
She looked really familiar, and I could not place her.
Christina Pickles. She was Monica and Ross's mother a few years later on Friends. Which is so funny because Courtney Cox is also in this movie.
Yes, I actually have a joke for that later. We'll get to it.
So she tells Skeletor, the sorceress does, that he's not won yet because He-Man is still alive. And he appears to get upset and like suck power, like suck life force from her. Unclear how this is all working, because if she's a powerful sorceress in her castle, how can he best her like this?
Because Skeletor, much like this movie, has an infinite amount of sucking power.
So he barks at Evil Lynn to activate the holosphere, which we cut to an outside shot of the troops and people looking up at the sky. It's a giant hologram of Skeletor telling everybody, people of Eternia, so the planet is Eternia. The war is now over. The sorceress is his prisoner. He's won. And those that do not pledge themselves to him shall be destroyed. So menacing.
The traditional evil speech of like, oh, I'm going to conquer the world. I'm going to destroy you all. It's never just like, a memo of like, oh, by the way, it's Bob's birthday. You guys want to pitch in on the cake? We got a card you can all sign. You never see the evil bad guy doing anything like that.
So we now see He-Man also watching this hologram. And this is where we get the amazing back shot of his mullet, complete with Farrah Fawcett feathered bangs. I mean, he's rocking this hairdo. They tried, but they could not make him look bad. I'm sorry.
When you look at a lot of the characters in this movie, at least in Eternia, the only thing I can say is that they must have one hell of a stylist on Eternia, because there is some amazing hair coming out of this movie.
Gwildor, I mean, come on.
Oh, yeah. And then one of the villains coming up, I swear he's got a perm going.
We'll get to that. So we see people now being rounded up by Skeletor's troopers. When He-Man attacks some of them, he proves that bringing a sword to a gunfight sometimes will work out for you, because these troopers are much like the stormtroopers in Star Wars. They are terrible shots.
Okay, I don't know about the stormtroopers because their outfits looked a little bit more slick, but these guys are running around in bulky outfits that I'm surprised they can even like move their arms. I'm questioning, how do these guys go to the bathroom? Is this like a 3-man process or something? Is there like a guy that has to come in and wipe your ass for you? Because you are not going to be able to pull that maneuver off in this costume.
No, and they're horrible shots. So maybe they can't see through those giant visors. I don't know. So He-Man's friends now, the man-at-arms, Duncan, and his daughter, Teela, show up, and they help free a prisoner the troops were carrying in this big net. And this is Billy Barty as Gwildor. And he says, I am Gwildor of Thenor, I think is the planet, a locksmith and inventor. I'm guessing that's a planet. Maybe it's a city. I don't know. Unclear, because he doesn't look like anybody else around here.
To be honest, I don't even know if this is a real He-Man character or not.
I was just happy Orko didn't show up.
See, that's what I was hoping for, was Orko, because I was like, if you're going cheesy, man, that's the only other character besides He-Man I know. You got to give us Orko.
I think that's what the Gwildor was, though, don't you? Kind of the Orko-ish.
That's kind of what I felt like, they had to replace Orko with him. But I mean, that'd be like doing a Thundercats movie without Snarf. It just, you cannot have it.
Agreed. So He-Man asks Gwildor, why did Skeletor want you? And he says, I'll show you, follow me. So they all just follow Gwildor.
because this is what you're going to do. When you ask why another man wants a man, he says, oh, I'll show you. You're going to follow him to his home.
Which is an adorable little hobbit hole in the middle of a hillside because he's tiny. So I guess he doesn't need a big space. So Gwildor shows them his inventions. His little place is riddled with them. And he calls this special one, why Skeletor wants him, the Cosmic Key. He says he made it for Skeletor and that Skeletor wants him now captured so he cannot make another one, but he has this prototype. So my question was, capture him. Why not just kill him? If he already made one and you have it and you don't need him, just send the orders to kill him. Why capture him so he can't make another one?
Okay, so we're already beginning into the where I have to throw in some logic to help this process along.
Please do, because this movie, I'm going to question the logic all the way through.
To be fair, how many of us have multiple sets of our house keys because we lose them all the damn time? Someone's going to lose that cosmic key. And so you're going to have someone. You can't exactly go down to Lowe's to have them make a new cosmic key for you. So we got to keep the little guy around to do the work for us. That's what I'm thinking.
And he says he has this prototype. So clearly he has made at least two.
Exactly. I do want to point out again, I'm going to bring this up so many times, but again, cosmic key, total Jack Kirby thing.
Really?
Just saying it, like it pops in my head of like, this is something Kirby would do, you know, the cosmic force, the cosmic, it's like Kirby and cosmic just goes together like peanut butter and bacon.
So really, really well is what you're saying. So he fires up this key and it starts to move various parts that look like little tuning forks and it plays music. He tells them it can open a doorway to anywhere just from the tones that it plays. Then he further explains that that's how Skeletor's troops got into the city to surprise them. They used his key and snuck in. So Teela now gets pissed, but Gwildor explains that he's from a peaceful race and he did not intend the key for that use, that was all Skeletor. Eva Lynn apparently was the one who showed up and tricked him into giving her the key. So, you know, Gwildor fell for it. Why's Teela gotta be a bitch?
I was just about to ask the same thing. It was like, you know, he didn't specifically create this. He just jumps to the conclusion that it's like, oh, well, you're an asshole. I'm going to kill you because you created something that's going to end the world.
And that's a running theme in this movie. This bitch, she jumps to a lot of conclusions. We'll get to them. So He-Man wants to use the key to get inside Castle Grayskull and free the sorceress, but Gwildor says no, because if we turn this one on, Skeletor's key will lock onto it. I thought this was just like a prototype. Suddenly these are both fully functioning and they sync up. What?
I could probably come up with some logic on that, but just you explaining that again, like trying to like understand this part of the plot just gave me a headache. So we'll just move on.
Sometimes you have to just let me have one. Some troops show up now at Gwildor's door, led by a creepy looking little monster. We don't know who he is yet. Gwildor takes everybody out a back secret passage. The troops blast through his front door. And I like that right before they cut out the back door, Gwildor says to the camera, to us, I don't like adventures. That doesn't seem to track with the fact that he's going to be tromping all over for everywhere for the rest of the movie, but okay.
It was almost like he was looking at the audience saying like, I don't like adventures, and then you're going to suffer through this one with me.
I'm taking you with me. Misery likes company here. So the four musketeers make it to the throne room of Grayskull. We got He-Man, Man-at-Arms, Teela, and Gwildor. And it is abandoned except for the sorceress, who tells them she's been imprisoned by Skeletor's force field. Okay, not a very good sorceress if you ask me.
Also not a very good, even no matter what's going on, you think there's at least got to be a guard on charge watching this woman. I mean, it's like, okay, there's a force field of light. Like there should at least be somebody just kind of hanging out there.
Well, that's when I went, okay, maybe not totally lazy writing because they're clearly setting a trap for He-Man and them.
But it's like, even as a trap, it's like if you go into, you know, you're going to rescue somebody and then there's nobody there guarding the person you're supposed to rescue. At what point do you stop scratching your ass and say, this feels like a trap?
Right? It does. Yeah. How stupid are they that they don't realize that? So He-Man asks Gwildor, here's my logic thing is going to come up every 3 minutes. I'm sorry. He says to Gwildor, use your key to open a door to the energy field to free the sorceress. What? I know. There's nothing. I know. What can you say?
I mean, the only thing I can even come up with, but it would still make no sense, is maybe it's a little bit like Nightcrawler's teleportation, that he has to know where he's going to teleport. Otherwise, he could screw up and like end up, like stuck in a wall or a girl's locker room or something by accident. And so it's like he's got to know exactly where, or it
Okay.
could go bad. Even then, it's like, you probably could have figured this one out a little bit better.
So the troops suddenly all come busting in. Shocker. And then Evelyn and Skeletor follow. And when He-Man tells Skeletor, I fucking love this. He tells Skeletor, let the sorceress go. Skeletor just goes, I don't think so. Yes.
These two worked so well together because, like, I mean, I like Dolph Lundgren. He seems like a cool guy. I like his movies and stuff, but he's not a great actor. Like, I don't see him ever winning an Oscar, but he's decent enough that he is like, it feels like the two fed off of each other and brought something a little bit out, and it worked so well.
Well, before this role, Lundgren had only had a small part in A View to a Kill, and then he had Rocky IV, and his English was still developing because he's Swedish. So they were going to ADR him with somebody else, all his lines, but he convinced them that he could do it. And you can tell he's trying really hard. Like when you watch his mouth when he talks, because I was watching his mouth. Anyway, yeah, too much about me. So you can tell he's trying really hard to enunciate and speak English. Like, it's so funny if you know that trivia going in that they wanted to replace him. He's like, no, I can do it. And it's him. He does it.
And they did a good job with that, because if you would have dubbed over him, I mean, it's never worked well in Godzilla movies.
So Skeletor says, I don't think so. Frank Langella, God, I love him. So we learn here that by moonfall, I would assume that means midnight tonight or whatever, whenever the moon is going to drop. I don't, dawn, maybe moonfall. I don't know.
I think it is dawn, because dusk till dawn. So dusk is the morning, dawn is the evening. So moonfall has to be that. But then again, I mean, moonfall could be anything on Eternia.
This is true. They made up so many nonsense words in this movie. I mean, a preton. I had to Google some of this shit because I was like, that sounds familiar. No, they made it up. They made up a few words.
And it's not even good made up words like in Star Wars.
So we learn by moonfall, the sorceress powers will be transferred to Skeletor and she will die. They realize now that Gwildor is there and has another key. So Skeletor says, kill Gwildor. There's that. Should have done it earlier. The troops open fire. Evelyn flees. Smart bitch. Skeletor, though, sticks around.
Because he's a badass.
So Man-at-Arms tells Gwildor, change of plans. Open the door right now to anywhere. Just get us out of here. That seems like a terrible plan.
It does, but then what do you expect from a guy called Man-at-Arms? Which makes me wonder now, am I the only person that's wondered, is there a man of legs out there somewhere?
The man of torso, the man of neck, the man of ankles, they all work together.
And then they all kind of like come together, like in the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and then create this man of Zord.
Now that would have made this infinitely more interesting had that happened. So Gwildor says, okay, I'll do it. And he randomly starts punching buttons. The key starts to open a swirly hole in limbo in the room here. I thought of that hole in limbo from Monster Squad. It looks visually about the same. And they came out the same year, I think. So that tracks on special effects level. The hole opens up. Teela jumps in head first. The key gets shot out of Gwildor's hand. He-Man comes running through. I laughed so hard at this and just grabs little Gwildor and jumps off and leaps into the hole like he's diving off of a diving board. He like plants both his feet and then leaps holding the little guy. It is the most ridiculous looking shot. I watched it like 4 times. I don't know why these things amuse me. It just does.
Terrible things are fun to watch.
So a grappling rope device of sorts with a claw on the end of it comes flying out of limbo, grabs the key and pulls it back into the hole just as it closes.
That's the part that got me, was just like all this stuff happening. I'm like, okay, that happens. And then just out of nowhere, the grappling hook, which you blindly shot, you don't even know entirely where it's going, what it's shooting. And it's like, oh, okay, it just happens to grab the key. let alone the fact, okay, well, I'm going to throw in some of the your tearing apart of logic. Anybody as a child has played those claw machines in the arcade, and you can't even pick up a friggin' stuffed animal. How the hell is this thing blindly going to grab a cosmic key?
That was my issue. Get on the train. It's fun. Ride with me, Dave. Ride with me.
It's like, how many quarters did they go through to get this thing to work?
So Skeletor yells at Evelyn, who I thought had left a minute ago. I was pretty proud of her for leaving. He yells at her to find them and track them and get that key. His reason is, and again, terrible script, convoluted and weird and doesn't make sense. He says, I must possess all or I possess nothing. What?
Well, I mean, he is a megalomaniac, and so I can see it being like, if he knows there's another one out there, he's got to have it. Maybe it's like
he's a completist.
Yeah, it's like he's collecting plates, only it's cosmic keys. You got to have both sets, so like it's not worth anything. If Skeletor has a dinner party and you don't have both cosmic keys, he's going to feel like an ass.
Somebody will point it out. So cut to the four musketeers now landing in a muddy but lush green patch of what looks like forest area. Man-at-Arms asks Gwildor, where are we? He says they could be on any planet in the galaxy. I don't know. It's like, what? They took a huge gamble because what if they would have landed, they clearly can breathe oxygen like humans. What if they would have landed somewhere where it's an inhospitable atmosphere?
Or God forbid they would have landed in a good movie.
So they realize the key isn't there. How? They used their hook thing to retrieve it, but okay. They need to search for it. And they randomly get distracted by a cow. This was very amusing to me. This movie needed more cow.
It needed more, a lot of things. Okay, before we go any further, I have to point out two things. One, as far as the grappling hook goes, now we understand the whole claw machine. Okay, they did lose it on the way through the void, so apparently all the quarters didn't work. This is my complaint, is that I absolutely hate it when movies do this. Stop. If you have a property that does not take place on Earth, please, Hollywood, please stop forcing these characters to come onto Earth. We don't give a shit. We're not watching Sonic the Hedgehog for Sonic the Hedgehog to come and, PlayStation with Cyclops. Okay, that's not cool. And then with He-Man coming here, it's like, no one wanted to see that. We wanted Eternia. Even the people that don't know what Eternia is, this fact that you said Eternia, we're like, oh, what's this? This is going to be interesting. Let's see Eternia. Oh no, we're going Earth. Oh, okay. Well, another fucking movie like that.
Agreed. They missed a huge opportunity to have this whole universe, pardon the pun with that, of new characters and new places. They could have created anything.
That's what makes those movies like Conan and Star Wars and Star Trek and all these things memorable, is because you get to see all these different worlds and universes and things that you're like, oh, this is fascinating. And then
it's just lazy to take them to Earth.
Yeah, it's like, okay, well, we can't afford to make this, so we're just going to film it in, sunny California. I have no idea. Before we get any further, did you ever find out where they landed at in Earth? I don't recall them ever saying it.
Yes, they are somewhere on the West Coast, and I'm just going to assume California because of a discussion that Courtney Cox's character has here in a minute. We'll get to it.
Okay, because I was just like,
they're on the West.
It was California.
Yeah, they're on the West Coast somewhere, and I assume California, but yeah. All right, so Teela asks He-Man for a plan. And she is in the same garb and getup that her father, Man-at-Arms, is. It looks like she's part of the quote unquote army of, the resistance, whatever. Her weird headgear and her outfit, and she has a gun. So she's military, for lack of a better term. And she's looking to the man in the leather diaper and sandals for the plan. You and your dad don't have a plan?
They should have had a plan, but then, I mean, you're in the military and your name is Man-at-Arms. So again,
well, that's his title. His name's Duncan.
Yeah, but it's like Man-at-Arms is still even a terrible title. And then it's like, okay, what is Teela's title? Is she Woman-at-Arms? Is she,
no, but she says later she wants to be. She makes that joke in the music store.
Just terrible, terrible naming.
So He-Man says their plan is find the key. Gwildor will get us back to Grayskull. The end.
This is the one part where I'm like, okay, this is
the
what
fuck did you leave for?
Also, I was thinking like this is where Tila needed to shut the hell up because like, oh, what's the plan? And He-Man just needed to look at her like, bitch, really? What's the plan? We're in a whole new world. We're obviously going to find the fucking key and get the hell out of here.
And then my question was lazy writing. Why did you even leave Castle Grayskull if you're just going to go the fuck right back? What?
With that one, it does make sense. And I thought they did say that they couldn't control always where they were going. And Grildor was in a rush. So maybe he couldn't figure out, like maybe they were just going to go down the street to the Denny's in Eternia and be like, okay, we'll regroup, I'll get a moon over my hammy and kind of figure this whole shit out. And then we'll come back to Skeletor and kick his ass.
So touching on the conversation we had about capes in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles with Shredder, how wildly inefficient and impractical is He-Man wearing this giant red cape?
I kind of wondered, did He-Man have a better cape and he spilled like some soda on it and it was at the cleaners and he's like, shit, I got to get this old one. This looks like the cape that fits around like Andre the Giant, basically.
It's huge.
It is gigantic. And I don't know how he's not tripping over himself.
Yes. All right. So they all split up now in this strange land to find the key. And Gwildor decides to stay and talk to the cow. That tickled my funny bone.
Probably thinking the most interesting conversation he's had the entire trip.
So we cut now to Robbie's Ribs and Chicken, where we meet Julie, and that's Courtney Cox, on what is her last day of work here. So this is a weird plot for her, and it's a convoluted thing, and I'm going to have a lot of questions. So we learn she's leaving to move all the way across country to New Jersey. So that's your clue. Across country, they say. So she doesn't live right close to Jersey. Clearly, it's thousands of miles away is what they make a reference to. That was my tip off that they were probably in California.
Okay. Well, I mean, they could have been in like, Arizona but it's like, the scenery looked like California. But there's a reason I question it, and we'll bring it up later when a certain character shows up.
Okay.
That's the whole reason I questioned the entire location.
Okay. I questioned why I was sitting through this again, but okay.
Because you love having me on here picking on these movies.
So her coworker / friend, because she's telling her, breaking up with your boyfriend Kevin is going to be something you regret for the rest of your life. Julie looks like she's like 17, 18. You're going to give her shit for breaking up with her boyfriend. Not many people stay with their partner at 18 years old for the rest of their life. I just questioned this I was like, you're a shit friend if you're going to give her crap for that. You need to be supportive.
Okay, this part actually does make sense because you think back to when you were a teenager.
Oh, that was just so short. Not so long ago.
Go back about 3 weeks ago. And that, like every teenage person, when you go through your first breakup, or hell, at that point you're a teenager, 5th or 12th breakup, who knows? You always feel like it is the end of the world. So I could
see she didn't though.
No, she didn't. But I could see the friend thinking like, okay, well, don't make this mistake. This could be the love of your life. This is, a great experience. She doesn't know the future. She doesn't know that she's eventually going to move to New York and marry Chandler Bing.
So Julie says to her friend, look, I need a fresh start away from everything and everyone. And that includes Kevin. And then Kevin, knight in shining kidnapper panel van, shows up. That's her ride home. So Kevin, we get to see him now when she goes out to the van looking like a discount Andrew McCarthy.
I want to feel bad for Kevin because I just kind of feel like Julie is not the greatest girlfriend to him, because it's just always like, I always feel like it's like, just shut up. I'm doing my thing. You just stand over there and look stupid.
And he does.
I was like, then you look at him and you're like, okay, this is pretty much what the guy can do, is just stand there and look stupid. Yeah.
He asked Julie, please take a later flight. So that leads me to believe her flight is in a few hours. This is their last few hours together, right?
That tracks.
So then she says no. He says, okay, fine. Will you at least come to my sound check tonight as our last date?
Am I the only one that just picked up on the fact that couldn't you take a later flight was a total PG version of like, hey, I want to have some sex before you go. Can you just give me a few minutes before you have to get on the plane?
I don't think I don't think Kevin's very good at reading people, because she's clearly not giving off that vibe that she wants to go do some fucking. She looks like she's 1 foot out the van, tipping the fuck out the door.
She does. She does. And then I guess now you bring it up, that does make sense because I mean, he doesn't look like he's very good at reading comic strips and then Sunday newspaper either. So I can understand that.
So then we see Tila lurking in the bushes outside Robbie's ribs and chicken place, and she sneaks up on her father, and they watch Gwildor use his claw on a rope grappling hook thing, which I don't even know what to call it. How this even works, I don't know. He steals a bucket of food from the back seat of a convertible car of a couple making out in the parking lot. Okay, so they're turned in the front seat facing each other. So they've got peripheral vision. The bucket is right fucking there. You know, this thing is not stealth, this claw.
No.
How does this even happen?
I thought of this, and the only logical reason I can come up with, and this is only a 50% logical reason, it totally makes sense that the guy is not going to notice because he's making out with his girl, so he's in the moment. His eyes, even though they're like there, his eyes are looking down. He's not thinking of anything other than trying to get some.
It just was weird to me. I'm like, how does it not make noise? It's on a rope. How did he throw it so accurately? The whole thing confused me.
Now that part I get, because when you want ribs and chicken, damn it, you are getting ribs and chicken, and you are manipulate the gravity and everything of the universe to make it work to get that delicious ribs and chicken.
Well, the three of them sit there in the bushes eating this ribs until Tila realizes it's an animal and then she doesn't want it. I was like, eye roll, really?
Nah, I hate that in movies when people in another universe have this stuck-up attitude of it's barbaric to eat animals. Bitch, shut up.
Yeah, what the fuck were you eating on Eternia? We didn't see anybody eating anything. What do they eat there? Who knows?
It'd be great if it was people.
They eat Soylent Green on Eternia. That's what this movie needed, was Charlton Heston. So we cut now to Julie and Kevin at the cemetery where her parents' grave sites are. She wants to say goodbye to them before she leaves. She lays a huge guilt bomb on poor Kevin, who's trying to comfort her. She says the reason that her parents died in the plane crash is because instead of all three of them going to the beach together, they took a plane to Catalina because she said she was going to stay home to study. In reality, she was staying home to sneak out with Kevin.
I have that in my note.
You're fucking putting it on Kevin while your parents are dead?
Yeah, I literally put that in my notes. The same exact thing. I felt bad for Kevin again because it's like, come on, man. This just...
And he's oblivious that she's inferring that at all.
These people deserve each other because she's a terrible person and he's an idiot. So he can't tell that she's a terrible person.
He tells her, don't blame yourself. Idiot, she's blaming you. But okay, she hugs him and her mouth doesn't move, but yet we hear voiceover of her saying, I wish I could change things. Her mouth doesn't move. She's a ventriloquist now.
I'm sorry to anyone who's a fan of Friends, but the few episodes I saw, did her mouth ever move in that either?
I will say I noticed that whatever people want to do, side note, whatever people want to do to make themselves feel better on the inside by doing stuff to their outside appearance, God bless, do what you need to do. But she looks so adorable, so naturally pretty in this. I was so sad kind of watching her, honestly, because I'm picturing what she did to herself years later. She's trying to correct it now as best she can, and now that she's older. But that's all I kept thinking watching this. It made me sad to see how cute she was.
She was so adorable. I mean,
Yeah.
If I would have watched this as a kid, she would have been a childhood crush of mine because she was so pretty.
Agreed. So as they're walking away, Julie finds the cosmic key in a hole in the bushes. Kevin says it must have fallen from the sky because of the size of the hole in the ground. He starts to mess with it and it plays music and lights up. And he says, oh, it must be one of those new Japanese synthesizers. Did I miss my Sony payment? What's going on here?
That was so terrible, but it's like it's a staple of the 80s.
This is one of those new Japanese synthesizers.
I love the fact that it's like everyone is so trusting in these movies. You find like random objects that look, I mean, this thing does not look cute and cuddly at all. Doesn't look like a musical instrument. This looks like the kind of thing that is going to give you the worst possible anal probing you will ever experience. But you're going to pick it up and touch it
or
anyway.
the most pleasurable.
And yeah, it depends on how freaky you are.
So we cut now back to Castle Grayskull, and all of the skulls, did you notice this, on the pillars of the castle look kind of like Skeletor? I thought that was so weird.
How many billionaires? I mean, I'm sure Jeff Bezos has like a gold statue of himself in his toilet somewhere. So it's like that makes sense. Evil people will have like monuments of themselves.
I just thought it was weird. I'm like, isn't he supposed to be the bad guy? Why is the castle like a tribute to him? But okay. So Evelyn tells Skeletor the cosmic key has been activated and its location is within a parsec eon. We can track it. It's within a parsec eon. So of course I looked this up. Parsec is distance in light years, like that's fine. And then eon is a measure of time. It's a span of 1 billion years. If you put those together and track the key, it's magic.
I mean, the word, at least that's one of the few words in the movie that actually sound not that bad. And I cannot discredit parsec because Star Wars did it first.
So Skeletor says it could be a trap. It could be doing this to trick us. So Evelyn, you need to go get the key, take a team of mercenaries, or no, I'm sorry, send a team of mercenaries, and when the key is activated again. So he's not sending her yet.
Now, before you introduce the bad guys, am I the only person that would have absolutely lost their shit if after he said the trap, we would have got the General Akbar, it's a trap?
I was waiting for him to show up because this very much had Star Wars vibes. So cut to He-Man roaming through the trees for like 20 seconds, and then we cut again away. This movie, director / editor combo, lots of cuts, lots of 20 seconds here, 20 seconds there. I didn't care for it.
Well, I mean, you can only stand watching probably these scenes for about 20 seconds before you got to be like, all right, we got to move on to something else.
Right? It was still boring though, magically. That's so weird. So we cut now to the abandoned high school gym set up for some kind of a prom or dance of some kind. Julie's sitting there watching Kevin do a sound check for a full band of equipment by himself. What?
He's a one-man band. He's an idiot savant.
At least an idiot. So, okay. Kevin says he's going to hook that key up to an amp and test it out. Again? What?
He just went down to Radio Shack and got a universal, literal universal adapter.
So then he says, here goes, and he fires it up. It spins, makes light, plays music. Back at Castle Grayskull, Evelyn's her henchman locks onto the key's signal, and excellent. That's what they say. Excellent. We've locked it in. Okay. Skeletor walks in and says, time is of the essence. I'm still so fuzzy on Skeletor's goals here. I have to have it all or I have nothing. Time is of the essence. Why?
He's a very impatient megalomaniac.
Yeah, I don't get it. Why is it so urgent? As long as he's not freeing the sorceress, what do you care? Your plan is still going to happen.
Maybe he's got an appointment. I mean, maybe he wants to get this stuff done because, tomorrow he's got to stay at home because the cable company said they'll be there between somewhere of 2 and 8 p.m. So it's he's like, come on, guys, I don't want to miss out on my HBO Max.
So they show Skeletor on a screen, the location of the key, and we get just a quick barrage of Atari 2600 style graphics landing on a Google Maps image of their house, basically. It's the most ridiculous transition.
I'm only bringing this up because I had to watch Strange Days a few days ago, and that wasn't a movie I've ever been interested in. I'm not a fan, but I kind of pointed out when I was watching it, I was like, this is my problem with science fiction movies in the 80s and 90s before digital effects. You're trying to make it seem like the future, but yet everything looks like you said Atari or at best Nintendo graphics. But this is supposed to be the future.
Like the computer setup and Mother in Alien.
Yes.
Spaceships and things with computers that are supposed to be futuristic. And it's nope, that's from the 80s.
That's what makes unfortunately making Star Trek sometimes hard to go back and watch, because it's it just doesn't feel like the future.
It dates it very much. So Evelyn says She's selected Skeletor's 4 finest warriors to go retrieve the key. And this is where we get an intro in a sort of Usual Suspect style lineup.
Have you assembled the mercenaries?
Here and awaiting your command. I have selected your finest warriors. Blade. Sarad. The Beastman. And Karg.
A curious quartet.
We meet Blade with his weird eye patch, his 2 master shredder coleslaw cutting pieces on his ear, the chin strap situation holding it all in place. What is his deal?
I don't know, but for some reason I have this backstory in my head of the reason he's got the eye patch is because he's not as good at using blades as he thinks he is.
Yes.
I just picture like everyone hanging around and be like, hey guys, check out this trick. And now he's got the eye patch. You're like, yeah, you shouldn't call you Blade now, should we, buddy?
So then we meet Sarad, who is a lizard man, but he's in basically a full armor getup, including a helmet, so that my suspicion is they didn't have to do much special effects work on costuming on him. However, his throat doing the big puffy breathing gill man thing, really fucking cool.
I love the design of that one. I mean, like, that's one of my favorite designs. Like, that's up there with, I said, the Skeletor and the Evil Lyn. I love his look. Like you said, it looks like they had to kind of do that because they didn't have the budget for all the special effects, but it worked for some reason. Agreed.
Then we meet Beastman. Bigfoot meets the $6 million man, like kind of special effects on this costume. It's pretty ratchet. Not gonna lie.
It works for the era. It does. But yeah, it is pretty bad. And it's like, also, I have to point out that, again, this is one of the few He-Man characters I know. I have no idea who he is, what he's from. I just know the name Beastman.
And then last but not least, we meet Karg, who we realize was the little monster guy that went after Gwildor earlier. Looking like, to me, Dana Carvey and the Grinch had a white-haired troll baby.
He was an ugly character. He was hideous. I don't know what he was, but that sumbitch has some style and hair. This is the guy that I was saying he went out and got a perm, because that hair is just amazing.
So then this is where we get more confusing instructions from Skeletor. He tells them they have to go follow the key, go get He-Man, and they must be back before moonrise. He tells them to do whatever they want to the others. He doesn't say anything about the key, retrieving the key. Get He-Man and be back by moonrise. Those are his instructions. I feel like, again, somebody wrote one page of dialogue for Skeletor. Somebody else didn't read that page and wrote another page, and then they put them together.
He's very indecisive. He doesn't know what he wants. Maybe he's missing He-Man and he's just like, I want my buddy back. You know, it's not the same.
I want my buddy back, buddy back. So back at the high school now, Kevin says he's going to take this key to his buddy Charlie, who ought to know what it is. Julie says she wants to stay behind at the school alone in the gym to say goodbye to the place because she's not going to be there for graduation. Okay, what exactly is she doing? Her parents are dead. She's leaving school before graduation and flying 3,000 miles across country. What?
I mean, it is the 80s. You know, I'm sure the more you go back in time, children had more freedom. I mean, if this would have been like the 50s and it would have been a 10-year-old kid whose parents had died, he'd probably be, you know, going to work every morning, smoking a cigarette, coming home from the office. And, you know, they would let him get away with it because it's the time period. So I'm assuming the 80s, she's like, okay, no parents. I got freedom. No one gives a shit if I'm living in this giant house all by myself.
Exactly. We'll get to that.
Yeah, like, fuck it. I'm just going to New Jersey.
So he says, okay, fine. I'll be back in 15 minutes tops. I guess this is a real small town. They kiss twice and he leaves. And I'm like, aren't they broken up at this point or breaking up? Why are they being all lovey-dovey? Mixed messages. Shame on you, Julie, you selfish bitch.
I've always had a problem with characters named Julie ever since the horrors of Darkman. And I just kept picturing Liam Neeson every time they say her name, just going, Julie.
That's so funny that you have a movie association with a name. I have one with Laura from Sleeping with the Enemy. When she falls off the boat, he's going, Laura! and they play it like 10 times in a row. Stop yelling her name.
He's not coming back.
God. Okay, so at this point in the movie, I paused it. I did a time check. We're at 30 minutes in an hour 45 minutes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much nothing has happened.
Also, I kind of wonder if like they overestimated, like, is this in post-production or something? Like, is this why we got the credits before the movie? Because if the credits would have still been rolling, we would have been at this point in the movie. So they're like, well, let's not have too much happen because people are going to be paying attention to the credits.
I mean, I think that they wildly overestimated young children's attention spans because nothing has happened in 30 minutes. All right. So at this point, she's alone and the hole in limbo opens up and in come the bad news gang. They attack a janitor. We find out later it's a janitor, but he doesn't look like that here. He's like, what are you guys doing? And they beat him up and throw him through the door into the gym. Julie screams and freaks out. They shoot at her. She drops her bag, jumps under the stage, tries to crawl away from they're all after her at this point. The gym starts to go up Carrie style, just in flames all over this like prom decor. And then we cut as she's screaming and trying to get away from them. We see that it's dark out now and He-Man is running down the sidewalk, just running through the neighborhood. Nobody cares.
I mean, it is California.
Californians are much like New Yorkers. Yeah, nothing really phases them anymore.
Nope.
So Julie's screaming and he hears her. She comes running down an alley. The baddies are chasing her. They go into a storage yard type place inside of a chain link fence. He-Man runs into her and says, it's fine. I'm not going to hurt you. What are you running from? And she says, monsters or whatever. He says, I'll handle it. And he just swoops her up and carries her away. And I have never wanted to be Courtney Cox more in my entire life.
Apparently, it's just, you're automatically going to trust a half-naked stranger covered in body oil.
Yes, you
like,
are.
hey, I'm here to help. Help with what? I don't know, but apparently he's going to help you do something.
That's right. Carry me away. So he gives her a futuristic looking gun and leaves her to go fight the monsters. They shoot at He-Man and he's got this sword, but he has a gun that he got from one of them or something, and he fires back and hits a trooper. I don't understand why he's using this gun to shoot at them if you have your sword. Why do you have your sword if all you need is a gun? Because these guys are shooting these laser guns. A sword seems wildly inefficient.
I'm suspecting maybe, because we don't know what happened before the movie. Maybe, he was at like the local comic book store in Eternia, found this cool prop. He's like, hey, I want to buy this. Spent like, $30,000 on this cool sword. And now he's like, well, shit, I don't want to lose it because I just dropped all the money on it. So he's got to carry it with him now.
So Julie has her little gun. She shoots one of the trooper guys that has higher ground above He-Man. So she's not useless. He-Man tussles with Beast-Man, shoves him to the ground, only to turn around and get confronted by Blade, who has 2 swords, and he still doesn't defeat He-Man. Sora jumps on He-Man from above. He-Man just tosses him at Blade. So Karg now, while He-Man's tussling, grabs Julie and she screams, and He-Man throws his sword across to Karg and it like sticks in it next to his head, like in a crate. So he freaks out and runs off. Doesn't even try to commit to grabbing Julie, just leaves.
Well, I mean, if you saw a big sharp instrument like that coming at you, I mean, like, let alone it's like, this is a very erotic man throwing a phallic image at your head. I would be terrified.
So Man-at-Arms and Teela show up now in the alley and they start shooting at the big baddies, sending them all running. He-Man tells them to follow them. They must have a doorway to Eternia. He's not wrong. They do. So He-Man confronts Julie now, He-Man comforts Julie now, hugs her, tells her she's safe. He needs her help. He wraps his cape, I think, around her and is like, you're fine, you're safe. And I was just like, oh, that lucky bitch. Again, I never wanted to be her more.
And in your mind, you're in this universe is just like so jealous and like hearing the bounce wow sound and everything. You're like, oh, this is gonna go somewhere.
Damn it. Yeah, that was the other thing this movie was lacking is any kind of romance, which I assume they didn't put it in here because it's directed at children.
I could see that being one of the things that Mattel was kind of had their fingers in, because yeah, it seems like, I want to say like in the 80s cartoons and stuff, you did not see a lot of romance.
Yeah.
It's like, I want to say I see that a lot in the little bits of anime that I watch, that it's they hint that there's like a romantic tension, but a lot of times you don't typically see it happening unless it's specifically a romantic story.
So we cut now to Kevin taking the key to his buddy Charlie, who owns a music shop. Charlie says, "Oh yeah, I've seen like one of these before. It's Japanese."
I was distracted, and I don't know if you caught this, and this is just, maybe I'm overthinking this. The sign in the back of Charlie's that says no refunds on merchandise. I was thinking, okay, so what are they getting refunds on then? Because it's like the only thing you're selling in there is merchandise. So is there something else I can get a refund on? Can I get a refund on my time with Charlie? What the hell am I going to get a refund on here?
I thought that too. What, just not that specific thought, but I saw the sign and I went, is this like a pawn shop type of music shop situation where maybe the shit he's selling isn't totally guaranteed? And so he's like, well, no refunds. You bought it. Ha ha.
Or maybe it's like the pawn shop. Maybe it's like Gideon's pawn shop from The Crow. And like everything is coming off of like people that, you know, Charlie's sending out there and killing all these people and stealing their stuff to open his store.
I know where he gets his product from. Street Ninjas.
The turkey verse just exploded as like we've got the connection between the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and He-Man.
Exploded like the opening shot of this film. So back to He-Man and Julie in the alleyway as we hear He-Man wrapping up his story about, and we can only defeat Skeletor if we get that cosmic key. So I'm assuming he told her the whole thing, and what he means by that is we need to get back to Eternia is why we need the key.
I mean, it's hard to judge because we didn't hear the whole story, and I'm glad we didn't, because we've already lived it. I don't think I can live it a second time.
Yeah, he describes the key to Julie and she says, oh yeah, my boyfriend has that. I've seen that. So back at the high school, we cut away from this scene like we keep doing, and we're back at the high school. Kevin is looking for Julie, and it's police and firemen and this whole big thing happening. And he gets questioned by Detective Lubick, this little bald, hard-boiled looking cop that's there. And Detective Lubick is James Tolkien, who most people recognize him as, I think it's the principal or a cop or something in the Back to the Future series.
I was just looking that up because that is where I know him from.
Yeah, he was in all three.
Yeah, he was the sheriff in the third one when they go back to the Old West.
That tracks because he has that very cop hard-boiled look about him.
Yeah, and see that this is why I questioned the location, because everything screams California, but he screams New York.
Right? Like New York, Chicago, like a city beat.
Yeah, and it's like I don't picture that kind of cop on the streets of California. Because I mean, this is
LA,
not,
maybe.
I mean, this is not LA. This is like a suburb of a suburb somewhere. This is like the most docile part of California. There's like no beach bums. There's no nothing's happening in this town.
So the detective tosses Kevin, who is being extremely sassy right now, which you should not be with a cop, tosses him in his car and says, let's go find that girlfriend of yours. And they head off to Julie's house. I'm questioning everything, life at this point. Mostly, I'm like, what is this kid shows up saying, my girlfriend was here. The gym is on fire. There's been chaos and vandalism, the guy says. Then this kid shows up and says, well, my girlfriend was here. We need to find her. Why does him and his key, he's holding the big key, suddenly become this giant point of interest for this detective? I didn't understand that.
He was very suspicious of these people and is like, yeah, I kind of thought the same thing of, you're not being a cop, you're not investigating, you're not really taking down a statement, you're gonna dirty Harry this shit up. You're just like, no, I'm looking to find something and I'm gonna shoot it.
So back now, He-Man and Julie hook up with Teela, Man-at-Arms, and this is where they actually call Man-at-Arms Duncan because he introduces Julie to him. But it's the only time they ever say his actual name. Teela is clearly jealous of Julie because she immediately misreads the situation with He-Man. I was found something or whatever. And she's like, yeah, you did. Or I don't know what she says. It's something snarky where she's clearly jealous.
Yeah, I caught that too, and I think I even put down in my notes. I couldn't tell if she was jealous or was like, is this a common occurrence for He-Man to like pop into random universes and pick up teenagers? Like if this is the thing, that's a whole separate movie that needs to be addressed.
This is why I was saying Tila's assuming something's going on and it's not. Also, why is that even in the script at all? Because there's no romance or love interest stuff in this movie. Why even throw that in? It seemed weirdly out of place.
This is where I would love to have somebody out there that is a He-Man fan and knows the lore and everything of like, I assume in that universe there is a connection between He-Man and Tila. I always assumed it was He-Man and She-Ra, but I don't know if they're part of the same universe. I have no idea.
They are, but I don't know if they are more considered siblings versus love interests.
Maybe that's acceptable.
All right, so they all get interrupted here when Gwildor rolls up in this beat up old car that he calls a land boat. Oh, tropey. I hate it so much. And he's driving it.
He was inserted to be the like stereotypical comic relief, and it's just the jokes fell as flat as you knew they were going to. You're just like, no, this is not funny.
Well, they all laugh. Oh, Gwildor, and they jump in the car, and it's like, oh, kill me now.
I almost wanted like that, like almost Full House laugh kind of thing of like, ha ha ha, and then like the screen like freezes, and like you cut to the credits and the theme music, and it's like, He-Man will be back next week.
So Gwildor starts to rattle on about how he fixed the car and it now runs on Lucrinos instead of hydrocarbons. There's some weird device on the dash that he punches and fires up, and then like flame lights and loud noise like shoots out the back of the car. He's rigged it up to where it doesn't run on gas, I guess. I was like, how?
He probably went to the school of Doc Brown.
That's the only explanation, because I don't know how he did this, especially so fast and not knowing where he is.
Yeah, I never really put 2 and 2 on that scene until you just brought it up. Thank you for ruining that scene for me.
Yeah, I ruined this movie for you? I don't think so. The script writer did that. So meanwhile, back on Eternia, Skeletor is uncomfortably close to Evil-Lyn, right in her face, telling her he needs to break He-Man, not kill him, gotta break him. She looks ready to make out with him. When they cut to her, she looks like she's like, oh, I want you so bad right now, Skeletor.
I always suspected there was a sexual tension between those two characters anyways. I mean, just even throughout everything, like every meme, cartoon clip, everything feels like there was a sexual tension there, and they picked it up in the movie. If that's the Evil-Lyn I would be hanging out with, there would be a sexual tension then too.
So they get interrupted when Krag, Blade, Sarad, and Beastman all enter and tell Skeletor they failed. Not only did we not get the key, but He-Man got away. So they need another chance. They beg and plead. Skeletor gets pissy and kills Sarad, who was really just standing in the back minding his own business, and made me sad because he was the best looking one out of those four.
Yeah, I mean, like I would have killed Blade because I mean, how many times since he's appeared have we seen him not be able to do shit with a blade? So obviously this guy lied on his resume. So kill him and keep the others.
Right? He should have been pocket knife. So Evil-Lyn chimes in as Beastman and Krag are begging Skeletor not to kill them. He says, fine, you go with them, find the key, and then when you find it, send for me and I will show up with more troops. So Evil-Lyn is like, well, that's not what I meant. And he's like, nope, too bad. Off you go. So now we cut back to the detective and Kevin showing up at Julie's. The house has a sold sign out front. Okay, that tracks. Her parents died. She said she's leaving. Cool. We go inside the house. It's very confusing situation to me. I'm a life planner, so I spent a solid 10 minutes just thinking about this whole thing, and it made my head hurt. There is stuff in boxes packed and labeled, books, furniture, whatever, right? Kitchen. And then there's furniture and stuff around. Some of it's covered up like with cloths, like when you leave stuff in a house and don't take it. Some stuff is packed. A lot of stuff is not packed. The fridge has food in it, even leftover Chinese food and a bunch of stuff because he goes in to get something. I was very confused about what is Julie doing? What is happening in her life right now?
I mean, obviously Julie doesn't know what Julie's doing because I mean she's dating Kevin. That's the first strike against her right there. She's working at a place that sells ribs and chicken. I mean, this is the weirdest combination I've ever heard of. I mean, but for some reason it sounds delicious.
Delicious combination, yes.
It does, but it's like just, fried chicken and ribs at a fast food place. I barely trust fast food to handle French fries and hamburgers. Why am I going to trust them to handle chicken and ribs?
She was supposed to get on a plane, remember, at like 8:30?
Yeah, I don't know. It seems like we're closer to midnight now. Everything about her life just seems like a mess, let alone the fact that she's even in this movie. So there's so much that just...
Yeah, I'm like, how do you get on a plane and fly 3,000 miles away or whatever when your house isn't ready to go yet? What? And your parents aren't there, they're dead. So I don't know. It was just made me crazy. I paused it and thought about it for a good 10 minutes.
I'm assuming the guy, I don't know what the job is called. I think it's like a continuity editor or continuity consultant or something like that. I'm assuming that guy spent most of his time on this job high off his ass. And then probably thought, Mattel's up my ass, all this stuff. This is the 80s. We got Dolph Lundgren. This is based off a crappy toy line. No one's going to pay any attention to that, not foreseeing to the future that there's going to be a podcast.
That's going to pick it apart.
Yeah, that's going to be like, no, this is what's wrong with this. And this is why you're a terrible son of a bitch.
You should hang your head in shame.
You go to the corner now, mister.
So the phone rings in Julie's house and Kevin answers it, and it's Julie calling from a payphone. My question was, she was at the high school and thought Kevin was going to Charlie's and was going to wait for him. All this shit transpired. How is she in the frame of mind of, well, I bet you Kevin's at my house. I'll call my house.
That's a very good question. I just naturally assume that it's like, okay, well, they don't have cell phones at this point, at least not ones that aren't like the Zach Morris phones. So
Kevin's house, though.
I would have called Kevin's house first. I probably maybe would have even called the police or something.
Maybe she did do all that and they decided to spare us because this movie was boring enough. Let's just get right to the one important phone call.
Somewhere out there's like a deleted scene where it's like she's calling up everybody, random people, and be like, hey, have you seen Kevin? So they're like, yeah, I met this half-naked stranger.
We do not need the unedited director's cut of this. Thank you, if that's what it is. So Kevin answers, and the detective is right behind him eavesdropping. They talk in kind of code because she basically figures out he can't talk. And she says, stay put, I'll be right there. Now, in this town where he thinks he can be back in 15 minutes going from the high school to Charlie's music shop and back, if she says, I'll be right there, he can safely assume she will be there inside of 10 to 15 minutes. Okay, that's my logic. And we're just going to put a pin in that. So Kevin tells the detective now who's questioning him about the key, it's a synthesizer. He doesn't believe Kevin. He thinks something's fishy after that weird phone call. Kevin goes in the refrigerator to get some food, a big bucket of chicken out of the fridge because it's stocked with food on the day she's leaving for some reason. I'm not going to let that go. And then we cut immediately now. We cut away to Evelyn and the bad guys. And they're at the last place where He-Man was. So the place where they had the fight, the alleyway. Evelyn uses this really cool device that she calls a scanner to see what actually transpired earlier with He-Man when she wasn't there. That was kind of cool, actually.
Like I said, there were some scenes in this movie that make it really enjoyable. It's just that it's so far in between the stuff that just doesn't make any sense. I wish we could do this as like an actual like video and people could see the enjoyment on your face as you are dissecting this movie. Like you are in science class right now. You were just like, okay, no, this licking your lip. You're like, this shit's going down. I'm going to tear this motherfucker to the ground.
Why the show was birthed. Because I got to pick this shit apart because it makes me laugh. And I thought, why am I the only one? I can't be the only one who thinks these things. I can't be.
You were definitely not. I did not go into that much detail into my brain. Wow. Okay. I'm just reevaluating my life right now.
All right, let me give you another one to make your head spin. So we're looking at the scanner. It's clearly a device that exists. It's a thing. This isn't the first time anybody's ever seen it or used it. Okay. Karg had told Skeletor when he was pleading for his life that they were ambushed by a bunch of troops, and that's why they failed to get He-Man. They were overrun, right? So Eva Lynn is looking in this device and she sees He-Man solo fighting them all off. He's standing there. She knows he lied to Skeletor because she can see it. If you're Karg, you know this device exists. Why lie? Why make it worse for yourself? You know they're going to find out.
That is not where I thought you were going with it. I thought you were going to say, like, why didn't Eva Lynn like give him the look of like you're in trouble? I had a whole spiel on that, and now I'm completely caught off guard. Other than the fact that it's like I don't know, this guy's he's obviously got the intellect of a child, so he's probably just going off of like maybe they won't catch me.
Lie to save my ass and not worry that they're going to catch me. Clearly, that just baffled me. I was like, wow.
I didn't even think of that, but that is a really good point. And
if you know the technology exists to bust you in your lie, why lie and make it worse? Skeletor is going to kill you.
He probably overestimated his capability of like lying, of like, oh, I'm so good at this. I can do it. I know I can pull it off. Just screw the technology. I will make them believe this lie. Like the fact that I made them believe that this hairstyle is back and I can pull it off.
If I'm Karg, at this point, when you know the jig is up, I stay on Earth and join the circus as a freak.
Exactly.
I don't go back to Eternia.
Like, no, I'm cool. I am so cool.
So they lock in on the Keys location. Kevin turns on the microwave to heat up his chicken for him and the detective, and it jams the signal somehow. So Eva Lynn tells the guy, blow it up, whatever's jamming the signal. So then the microwave explodes with Kevin and the detective standing right next to it. I was surprised they didn't do like a stunt double or anything.
That was pretty impressive because like you could tell they were right there. They let it happen. They were very comfortable with the person behind the explosion, which I would not have been, like being on the set of this movie, seeing everything that happened, and be like, I don't know if I trust you guys to be able to pull this off. Apparently they were a lot more trusting than I was. I love the fact that a 80s microwave can scramble a very high-tech device from like a whole nother universe. That's very fascinating to me. Like that should not seem to work.
Oh, that was a question I had that I didn't bring up earlier, and you just made me remember. A whole different universe, you're saying. Aren't we part of the same universe that like Eternia and other planets would be a part of? Is it galaxy or universe? I'm no science expert, but wouldn't the universe include us and Eternia and Mars and, you know what I mean?
I think that is a major flaw in all of this. Like, yeah, it should be like we're all part of the same universe. This is just a different planet.
Because if Skeletor is going to be a master of the universe, does that mean he's the master of Earth too?
That seems to make sense, but he seems to have no interest in Earth. I mean, it's like, does he even know Earth exists? He never said anything about it before. So
right.
So the only thing I can figure is maybe this is a multiverse possibility. And so we all occupy the same multiverse, and our universe is just in there with their universe.
Okay. I was so confused by that.
That's the only thing I can figure out.
Yeah, that I was just confused by that, but that's pretty good logic, actually. Let's do the He-Man multiverse. I'll go with that.
Occasionally, I can pull a clever thought out of my ass.
All right. So the detective grabs the key after this explosion and grills Kevin about it. He finally gives it up and says, this is really what happened. This is where I found it. He says, I found it in the cemetery, which is not true. Julie found it. Julie was with him. He knows Julie is on her way to them inside of like 10 minutes. Sit tight and Julie can corroborate my story because she was there, is what should have happened here. That is not what happens. The detective says, oh, your friend Charlie knows about these things? I'm going to take the key and go see Charlie. He can corroborate your story. Why, when this bitch is coming to you? Stay there.
I would think so. I mean, I going back to the phone call, why you specifically spent all this time before this happened saying, why aren't you out there finding Julie? Okay, Julie just called. Why are you hiding the fact that you found Julie? have her show up, and then you guys can talk it over with the cop over a cup of coffee, a couple of donuts, and then problem should be solved.
Exactly. Lubick's motivation then goes away because he was like, let's go find out about this key and find your girlfriend. He even says they put an APB out for Julie. Why does he not say, Julie's coming? Let's sit here for 10 minutes, cop.
Doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But at the same time, it's like, well, nothing in this movie so far has made sense. So it's kind of fact, you know?
So Evelyn and the gang bust into Julie's house now that the cop is gone with the key, of course, and they rough up Kevin. But this was so funny to me. Right before they bust in, we see Kevin cleaning up in the kitchen. Burger King product placement, same as in Ninja Turtles, same containers, everything.
What bothered me about that scene was the fact that he's putting the trash in the sink, and then he puts a couple of oranges in the sink. What the hell is this sink going to do?
He's never getting a job as a maid. So they bust in, trash the house looking for the key. Beast Man begins to beat the shit out of Kevin, whose only defense is to yell at these people, get out of here. He's such a pussy.
I would have just loved it. I mean, like this would go down in history as the greatest movie of all time. If after he said "get out," they all just would have looked and be like, "Oh, I'm sorry." He just turned around and walked right out of the door.
So Evelyn slaps this big old metal medieval looking collar thing on Kevin that apparently is going to force him to tell the truth. He tells them that the policeman took the key, and then one of them, I forget which one, Karg maybe, finds a picture of Julie with her parents. And Evelyn is like, ooh, this
I think that I paid enough attention to it, but you're right. It was Karg.
Was it Karg? Okay. Yeah. Finds the picture of Julie and the parents and thinks, I better give this to Evelyn. And of course, she's like, oh, this could come in handy. Okay. So they hop on their small little flying transport, as they call it. And this was pretty fucking cool to me. The transport that they have here for getting around town, and then the one that ultimately Skeletor shows up on. When they're showing them up close, you don't see them moving. They're just still sitting on the ground like they've landed, and they look really fucking cool. And then when they're supposedly flying, if we're up close, it's like the land speeder shit in Star Wars. It's like they're driving. So we don't see the wheels, but we know that's what they're doing. But I still buy it. I'm like, oh, look, they're flying.
They actually did some decent special effects for this movie. Like you could see that there was, at some point, they were trying, which just makes you wonder at what point did they give up?
When they had to superimpose He-Man and the little guys flying around later. That shit looks terrible. So now He-Man and everybody rolls up in the car and they run inside and they find Kevin and they get that collar off of him. He says, hey, the cop took the key to Charlie's. And of course, He-Man says, well, can you take us there? Oh, sure, no problem. So they all hop in the car and head off to Charlie's.
I want to see the deleted scene where, like, on the way, they stopped at like Burger King in the drive-thru and the guy handing burgers to this. Like, why is there a half-naked man in a leather diaper in your car?
They're all going to Comic-Con. And also, He-Man was driving at this point, which I thought was funny because earlier Gwildor was driving, but now it's He-Man.
Which shows California will give anybody a license.
So over at the music shop, the detective is questioning Charlie on what is this key. Still unclear to me as to what the detective cares about, like with this key. Who cares what this thing is? What does this have to do with anything that's happening?
Well, maybe going back to a previous joke, maybe he's interested in some very kinky anal probing.
So He-Man and everybody pulls up. They go into the shop and the cop says, I have a feeling I've been looking for you all night, he says to He-Man. Maybe He-Man just looks like he gets into trouble in that getup.
Either that, or maybe we were interpreting it. It wasn't supposed to be, I was looking for you all night. It was more like, hey, I was looking for you all night.
I got this key here. What do you say we But he doesn't even notice that fucking Julie is standing right there. You've been looking for this bitch. You put out an APB. She's right there. Doesn't say anything about her or to her. Gwildor comes in, interrupts the detective, who has pulled a gun on them, demanding answers at this point. Teela takes the gun from him and tosses the key to He-Man. He takes Gwildor. They open the key. They get ready for Evelyn and the baddies who are descending fast on them. Tila takes Gwildor, Kevin, Julie, Charlie, and the detective all into the back room to protect them because the baddies are about to attack. He-Man and Man-at-Arms wait out front to be attacked, and they've got guns. No sword for He-Man this time, I guess.
Well, I mean, he's been using it a lot. He's got to let it rest, get some Gatorade in him, and then he can get back, get his stamina into it again.
So at this point, I'm thinking, okay, we're getting to the climax here. And then I paused it and I'm like, whoa, it's way too early for the climax. Like, what is happening right now? We're going to have this big standoff and then what? But I'm rolling with it. Gwildor tries to explain to Kevin how the universe is music. And he rambles on about this key and how it works. And then we cut to Charlie behind them telling the detective this reminds him of Invasion of the Body Snatchers with the pod people. And I just wrote in my notes in really big letters and question marks, what?
Apparently this man has never seen Invasion. I mean,
what?
I thought the same thing. Like, it caught me off guard. It's like, this has nothing to do with any of that.
Yes. And then the detective's response to him is that these people, meaning He-Man and Tila and everybody, are clearly a loony fringe group or cult. I seriously want to write a firmly worded email to David Odell and Gary Goddard and be like, what the fuck did you got? What were you thinking when you wrote this movie? They took from 1,500 other plots and just threw them all one page at a time and threw it all together. That doesn't make any sense.
See, this is what happens. If you get high and you write a movie and you've got a 50-50 shot of coming up with Masters of the Universe or Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
So out front now, Beast Man and the troops burst in through the windows. He-Man and Man-at-Arms just shoot at them and even toss grenades, and they completely destroy poor Charlie's store. I hope he's insured, is what I was thinking.
Well, he's probably pretty rich off of all the refunds he's not giving.
So Tila tosses the cop's gun over to Kevin in the back room there, and she says she has to go out front and join the fight. So back in the back room there, Gwildor is still working on the key. Kevin and the detective tussle now for control of the gun.
Which was completely unbelievable because Kevin is not going to have the strength to overtake anybody.
He's a pussy, I'm telling you.
I think if he even tried to take candy from a baby, the baby would whoop his ass.
So Julie sees her mother in the back alley now out of a window and sneaks out to go talk to her. Her mother tells Julie that the plane crash was a diversion to mask the secret work that they're doing, and they need Julie to go get her the shiny metal thing with the lights.
This scene bothered me so much just because it's like, if you see a dead relative walking towards you and they're dead. I mean, like, there's no confusion. They could not have faked this thing. They're gone. And you see them perfectly like clear coming out of like a dark alley. The last thing in my mind, am I going to run out there and be like, Mom, you're alive? And be like, oh shit, no, this is like at worst case, a zombie scenario. I'm getting the fuck out of here.
Red flag. So Charlie now inside jumps the detective. Kevin drops the gun and Gwildor picks it up. Julie comes running in, grabs the key and just takes off out the door. And for some reason, they try to follow her and this glowing pink light happens at the door like it's magically locked or something.
That did bother me because if you had the ability to do that to begin with, why the hell didn't you just like lock them in? They don't need the key. They want to kill everybody, throw a grenade, do the pink energy thing, blow up the store, and they're dead and the movie's over. But then we just explained why we cannot write movies in Hollywood, I guess.
Because we're too fucking logical.
Exactly.
So Julie hands her mom the key and hugs her. And then as they pull back, we see it is actually Evil Lynn. Mwahaha.
Surprise.
She leaves with the key as Julie just stands there screaming. And Kevin is now able to open the door and everybody comes running out in the alley to Julie. The magic just stopped, I guess, on the door.
I mean, to be fair, I enjoy this movie. I do. But even by this point in the movie, the magic has stopped for me. So
Beastman and the troops retreat to He-Man's surprise. Little does he know that the key's gone. Gwildor tells them, okay, the key's gone. That's why they left. And they all go out in the back alley. He-Man yells, This killed me. They run out in the alley and He-Man says, duck. And they all duck down and the troopers like shoot lasers at them. And because they've ducked in an open alley, they don't get hit. What? What in the actual fuck?
Even if you missed the first shot, there was like a 30-second break between duck and them shooting. So you just think it would have been like, oh, they're on the ground. Okay, here we go.
And not one of these 10 fuckers standing there with guns could hit anybody. Are you kidding me?
If you're out there planning to become an evil villain, please remember, do not get discount henchmen. You've got to spend the money, people. You've got to like invest in this thing because you're going to get some shitty, like crack addicted henchmen that cannot do anything right.
Make them do target practice.
Exactly.
Put He-Man's face on bullseyes.
Just put in the work and then you can conquer the world, but you got to put in the work.
You got to do it. So the detective now takes Charlie's shotgun from behind his counter in the store, runs outside and yells freeze at 5 of these trooper guys. He turns around and ducks behind a car because they repeatedly shoot at him and the car explodes. I fucking hate that movie trope so much.
It doesn't bother me. And up until the part where this car blows up, I do like it. The way they played it was actually kind of funny with the freeze, and they're like, "Oh no, we're gonna blow your ass up." It's just because like the look on his face is priceless to me. And
he's highly amusing.
He is a I don't know what the word I'm looking for here. I can't think of it, but just like a breakout star in this like movie. I did not expect anything from him. He seems like kind of a character, but he plays it so well, over the top at times. I love it. And then like the explosion, that's what bothered me, was like, this car blew up. This man should be dead.
And he's fine, except for some black shit on his face.
It's the Jingle All the Way explosion. It's like there's this cartoon.
Yes.
I'm just like, okay.
Because it's targeted at children.
Yeah, which is like
just like Jingle All the Way. Yeah.
It just doesn't make it, like, don't have the car blow up. Simple.
So Evelyn says she's going to now send Skeletor the signal, and she pushes buttons on the key like she knows what she's doing. If you watch her, it looks very like, oh, it's this one and this one, which is wrong. She should not know what she's doing if Gwildor doesn't fucking know what he's doing. But everyone's watching as a giant hole opens in the sky. Skeletor and his troops come through onto the street, and I love it. The scene with this big old, like, I don't know what he's like, throne caravan.
It is. It's again, this is a Jack Kirby-esque thing. Literally, this is in an episode of Superman the Animated Series, the one by Bruce Timm and Paul Dini. I believe it's the first one where Darkseid comes to invade Earth, and there is a scene exactly like this. Opens up portal. He comes out on the caravan, whatever it is, and there's this army of troops coming through.
Yeah,
exactly the same thing.
That's fucking rad. And he also has some trooper guys on these flying hover discs, and he calls them air centurions or centurions. And I was like, yes, that's so cool. But they look terrible, though, the special effects of them flying.
It's not even the flying that bothered me. It was the stance that they had on there. It was like this, like, weird, like their knees are bent and their ass is sticking out and they're kind of like bending over a little bit. It looked like maybe like they didn't get the full design. Like maybe there was supposed to be handlebars or something to hold on to.
It felt to me like they were trying to balance on a surfboard.
Yeah.
That was sort of the stance I got, the look of the stance.
Yeah, it looked weird for some reason. And I think that's what threw me off with the special effects.
So we cut to He-Man's crew running down the alley. They get fired upon by 2 of these air centurions, and they miss everybody in this group. They miss. He-Man takes one shot and hits and kills one of the centurions.
That is a stereotype that has, like, when I was a kid, I didn't pick up on it. I just didn't notice it. But like later on, it's become so annoying that it's always the bad guys constantly miss and the good guys never miss.
Mhm.
You would like to see at some point, like, okay, like, yeah, what the bad guy needs to shoot him, give him a flesh wound or something, shoot him in the ass for God's sake. Just give him something to let us know that these bad guys are actually bad guys. Because at this point, aside from Skeletor and Evelyn, I don't have any confidence in this plan of conquering the universe pulling off at all.
Agreed. So the second flying guy comes back around, and as everybody goes inside to an abandoned building to go up to the roof to hide, which seems very stupid considering that flying guys can come around and find you on the roof.
This is like a Kevin plan.
Yes. Or Tila, because she's not good at plans, apparently.
Yeah, like you just picture them being like, oh, just stand still. They won't see us. Henchman's visions are based on movement.
Like the T-Rex. So He-Man commandeers a lone flying disc now and battles one of those troopers in the air. They then, oh, wait a minute. I have he attacks Evelyn. Wait, does he attack her or he just swoops down and takes the key from her?
He just swoops down and takes the key from her.
Something like that. Yeah, right.
It wasn't like a full-on attack kind of thing.
Okay. Yeah, that makes more sense. And then one of the Centurions gets into a chicken situation with He-Man. They're both flying straight at each other at top speed. This scene, again, because of my logical brain, if they're that close in proximity and they can see each other and they're flying that fast, this scene takes way too long to occur because it's cut to He-Man, cut to him, cut to He-Man, cut to him, and they're flying at each other. It takes they'd be at each other in like 2 seconds. There's no way the scene drags out like this.
The problem with that scene for me is that it needed more to it. If you're going to do something like that corny, you've got to commit and you got to go full anime of the action lines behind them. He-Man screaming with the intense look on his face of like, I'm coming for you. Make this look amazingly bad to the point that we're just like, this is the greatest scene in the movie.
Well, it took a turn for me for a second where I was loving the shit out of it because they dodge each other and when they get close, the chicken thing ends and they swoop and He-Man flips upside down on this disc, which, as you pointed out, has no way for them to hang on. He's just standing on this disc and goes upside down and uses his sword to take out the other guy. It's fucking beautiful.
It's like the sheer intensity of He-Man just being He-Man is enough to keep him placed on this disc. All he's got, he's like Chuck Norris. He can do anything he wants.
So Skeletor and his troops come up now and surround the rooftop, and you get to see this fucking rad thing that Skeletor, this is his quote unquote ship that isn't really floating. I just assume it was like on risers and they lifted it up, but it's really cool. And they take Gwildor, Kevin, Julie, Tila, and her father all prisoner on this rooftop. He-Man shows up and puts up a fight with his sword against a dozen of these trooper guys. And again, all I wrote in my notes really big was why?
I mean, he's had time to rest. He can use his sword now, like after it's one of those things of like, after you use it, you get 30 seconds of sword action and then you got to like take a break. Like I said, get some Gatorade in you, kind of rest, and then you're ready for round 2.
Why hasn't somebody shot his hand to make him drop the sword or shot him in the leg? Like there's a dozen of them just standing around.
This is why you cannot skimp on the henchmen.
So Skeletor tells He-Man, you have a choice. I can spare your friends here if you become my slave and go back to Eternia with me, or you can stay here and die, everybody. So of course He-Man says, well, yes, I will drop my sword and I will be your slave. Just let my friends live. So you expect that from the good guy. Skeletor takes him as a slave and lets everyone live. And he even makes a side note to Evelyn or somebody. Well, this is going to be fine because He-Man is bound by his word. We can let the people live because he will be my slave as long as we don't kill them. He's bound by his word. And it's like, wow, He-Man must be the most honest, trustworthy man on the planet. That's pretty big.
For even the villain to be like, no, he gave his word. You almost expected Evelyn to be like, well, how do you know? And Skeletor would be like, well, he helped me move once a few years ago. He was the only guy that said he was going to be there, and he actually showed up. Everyone else bailed on me, so he may will come through on you.
Yeah, I missed an opportunity there too. I said he was the most trustworthy man on the planet. It would actually be in the universe. So now Tila asks how we're going to get home. Gwildor has the key. Why did Skeletor not take the key?
Well, have you ever forgotten your keys in the car?
That was such a big deal to be. He's a completist.
But also, I mean, at this point, I mean, let's face it, this has opened up so many times. This thing is harder to shut than the JonBenet Ramsey case, okay?
That is going to be the gift that keeps on giving.
It really is.
Oh my God. Okay. Gwildor says the core of the key was melted during all this kerfuffle, so the memory is lost. Sorry, folks, but we're stuck here. Then we see Skeletor and his troops leaving in their big limbo hole in the sky, taking their sweet ass time. This hole is open. It's going to be open for a while. They're marching at a slow pace. Why are Teela, Man-at-Arms, and Gwildor not following them into the hole right now?
That did bother me. I would have liked some kind of explanation of, like, again, maybe go back to the He-Man thing. If they're bound by honor, maybe He-Man tell them, like, hey, don't follow me, stay here, don't try to rescue me. Just give us some explanation as to why they're not going to do it. At this point, it just seems lazy. Not like these henchmen are not hard to knock out and put on one of their costumes and sneak in.
I was thinking of like in The Wizard of Oz, when the Lion, Scarecrow, and Tin Man sneak in from the rear.
It would have been so easy. That would have worked so well. I don't know why they didn't do that. Of course, we are going to find out why they don't do it.
Yes. So then we get a quick shot. Again, this movie with the quick 20-second shots here and there of police backup showing up to help Detective Lubick. And they razz him because they don't see any troops. Where are the troops, buddy? You know, there's nothing there.
It's almost like he's the joke of the force. Like, I'd love to hear like his backstory. Is this kind of like the cop from Die Hard kind of thing? Did he once shoot a kid and then like now he's, you know, like a disgrace and they put him in this horrible town and everyone's picking up? Like, there's an interesting backstory there.
You just wrote his backstory. That is why he's in California, because he's from New York and he had a disgrace there on the force and they shipped his ass to the other coast. There you go.
Thank you. Okay, I expect a letter from the people behind Master of the Universe. A thank you for just explaining something that did not make sense.
Right? Hollywood, hire us. We're figuring this shit out for you.
Yes, please.
So now Julie, who got zapped in the leg by Skeletor during that rooftop tussle, she's got a gross, pussy, oozy looking wound on her leg. And this bothered me too. Man-at-Arms tells Kevin that the poison is now in her blood and only the sorceress on Eternia can heal her. So whiny little Kevin begs them to find a way to get to Eternia. We have to save Julie. I was so bothered that a purple lightning bolt, whatever, zap from Skeletor put poison in her blood. What?
This is where it's the reverse for me. I like that. I think that's kind of cool. Like, that's how evil Skeletor is, that even if he, you know, like shoots somebody with a laser, there's poison. I mean, I kind of feel like this is the kind of man that's going through multiple toilets throughout the day because every time he takes a piss, it's probably melting the whole pot because he's that evil.
Wow. Okay. So Gwildor says the melody in the key was destroyed, which was the way to find Eternia specifically, which again, I question how he can do any of this because the whole thing was random to begin with. This little fucker had no idea how to work this thing that he invented. And it changes in each act of this movie, whether he can actually do this or not. I can't figure it out. I don't know what to do. And then it's, oh, we program it this way. And then it's, oh, wait, we can't. I don't remember. Pick a lane movie with Gwildor. Like, come on.
I can't hate on this because this is literally like me and a chili recipe. I mean, I've never made the same chili twice in a row because it's like random shit going in there. So
that's why you're destroying pots like Skeletor. So, okay. So he says, I can't remember the melody. Kevin, of course, Mr. Musical Brain now is going to be good for something, starts humming the melody. He remembers it. And he says, I know, he just pulls it out of his ass and then he goes, I know how we can recreate the melody. And he's going to take off to go get a keyboard. So he's gone. So Teela asks Gwildor, if Kevin knows this tune and has this device, can you get us home? This movie really should have not been called Masters of the Universe. It should have been called, it's really Gwildor's movie. And it should have been called something like Gwildor gets asked about this key and if it can be fixed so many times that you're going to forget the rest of the plot. That should have been the working title for this movie.
I could totally see that working because it is just like I was going to say something along the lines of masters of just random shit that happens.
Because to me, yes, you pitch this by saying Gwildor is an inventor. He makes a 2 of a cosmic key, and then he forgets how to program it. Then he can fix it. Then he can't, but then he does. That's the pitch for this movie.
I did not think about it, but that is 100% true. It really is his movie. Like he's the driving force behind everything that's happening right now.
So Skeletor and the crew show up at his throne room in Grayskull. And okay, this is where the kid that won the contest comes into play from Mattel that I was telling you about earlier.
I remember looking it up, and I spent the entire time looking for this kid. So I missed him. I'm glad you caught him because I did not see him.
Oh, I was waiting because the film had already been written and was underway when Mattel said, by the way, we had this contest and this kid won, you got to put him in your movie. We're going to put him in an Earth scene because he's a little boy. Well, they had already filmed a bunch of stuff and they said, we don't have anywhere to put him. And somebody said, better fucking figure it out. So they added in this shot. They went and shot this after the fact. And you can tell if you watch the whole scene. The scene is Skeletor walks through the throne room, through the troops, grabs his staff, goes up the stairs, and then stands at the throne and addresses everybody in the throne room. Okay, that's the scene.
Okay.
So the shot is he walks in and gets to the base of the stairs. We cut to, and I'll put this on social media, this little pig boy looking creature with human hands holding a staff, and you see a gloved hand and a little bit of a cape grab the staff from him. And then we cut back, it's 2 seconds, cut back to Skeletor going up to his throne and turning. The pig boy is nowhere to be found. He's not in this scene. They added that one shot because Mattel had promised him he could be in the movie.
Okay. So I either turned my head and coughed at this exact moment in the movie, or it was just, this movie was so, like everything around it was just so weird that I just didn't even notice Pig Boy because I was looking for Pig Boy.
Well, that's why, because it was literally a maybe 3-second shot that they added in after the fact. He's not even in the rest of the scene at all. He's not in the scene.
Now I do feel bad for this kid. It was like probably telling all his friends, hey, I'm going to be in He-Man. Yep. And on top of the fact of the embarrassment of being in He-Man, you get that scene.
A ridiculous getup, and you don't even know who he is. He looks like a pig boy.
Although I'm sure he appreciates it now that he's older, that he can deny it and be like, I wasn't in this movie. Prove it. Point out where I was at.
So anybody listening, his name is Richard Zaponder or Zaponder, S-Z. It's a very interesting spelling. And that is Pig Boy. So I've outed you, sir. That's who you are. Richard Sponder.
I say congratulations to you, sir. And if you're embarrassed by it, I'm sorry.
We're embarrassed for you. All right. So Skeletor is informed that in half a preton, the moon will rise. Nonsense words in this movie, I'm telling you. So the sorceress, if you look over at her, she's looking all old, like she's almost withered away and dying. It's kind of good makeup on her, I thought.
I was really impressed. That was another part of the makeup that they did a good job on. I was impressed with that. She went like just from, okay, she's pretty beautiful, like woman stuff, to like, oh, wow, okay, you guys are like melting her.
Yes. She almost looks like the Crypt Keeper. Like it's bad. So He-Man is chained sort of with these bindings at the foot of Skeletor's throne there. He gets whipped with a red laser whip by Blade. It's just bad. He-Man's like overreacting to nothing that's happening to him.
It is. And I'm kind of curious of like, did they literally lift this scene out of like your diary at some point? Him chained to the floor at your throne.
50 Shades of Grayskull.
All right, that one got me.
Because I'm fucking genius.
Oh, that was like a Mike Tyson punch of a joke of just like, I don't know, like, bam, I'm on the floor.
It shocked me too. That was not in my notes. But when you tee it up for me, I gotta hit it. So Skeletor now has the Sword of Grayskull, and he tells He-Man, you will kneel before me, and then you will die as all of Eternia watches. Cut to back on Earth, the police and Detective Lubick see Kevin whizzing by in his car because he's went to get the keyboard. They follow him. Gwildor uses the keyboard and has this whole setup. They're hooked into a power source on the brick wall building behind them and has all these wires and gadgets, and how he did this whole little setup, not knowing how to find things where they are. Kevin took off. Who's helping him round this shit up? I don't know how he created all this.
Apparently they've got MacGyver and Eternia.
So Gwildor says, thanks for the keyboard. I'll have this ready in a preton.
We need to watch more movies like this with these nonsensical words, because the joy that I'm getting having you pronounce words, knowing what kind of grammar cop you are, this is just like a delight.
I am so furious that they made words up that are nonsensical. You know, it's eating me up. So Kevin comforts Julie because she's dying from the poison, and they say they love each other. Aw, children's movie. Who could care?
But I mean, they have to love each other. They're the only two people that can deal with each other. Because he's too stupid to know what kind of bitch she is, and he's too bitchy to, be with anyone like smart. So it makes sense.
So now we get Skeletor monologuing for a solid minute and a half, and then we cut back to Earth. It's so weird.
I mean, I could watch them all because it's like I would literally watch, if there's anywhere on YouTube of like just a montage of his scenes alone, I would sit there and watch it.
The Skeletor cut.
Yes, because like that's all I really want to see.
So Loop, it's wonderful, but again, you feel like you're in a different movie in his scenes. It's like so what is the word? Captivating.
He gets you're so fascinated by him. He's just a very interesting character. It is like, okay, we're going to have this great, masterful, epic sci-fi drama with this amazing actor, and we're just going to blend it together with this Saturday morning TV shit.
Yes, it's like we get this great monologue and he's so serious, and then we cut back to the chimps on Earth doing their shit. And you're like, what movies? It's more than one movie happening here.
This is like Jurassic Park meets Teletubbies.
Probably a better script than this.
Hey, I pay to see that.
So Lubick and the cops surround Gwildor and Kevin and everybody. And then we cut back to Skeletor, and he's now on that holosphere addressing everybody in Eternia. More monologuing about how he's going to destroy everything. And he is now the master of the universe. Still fuzzy on what that means exactly. But he wants to be it. A hole in the castle now. The walls open up. Skeletor gets zapped with some beams of floating light, which I guess is power from the universe somehow. He-Man refuses to kneel before him.
I felt that was a defining moment, in the sense of that was any good hero would not kneel. So like that, I have to give him credit on that. That was impressive. And I want to go back to the power thing real quick.
Yeah.
Did you have the same feeling that I had of like, I don't know why, it's just my weird brain. I was thinking like Tinkerbell-like power fairies coming from the universe and granting him his power wish.
Yes. And visually, it reminded me a whole lot of what they did back in the mid-'80s. And I think Rawhead Rex, the horror movie, was around this time, where the monster leans back and and a bunch of beams of light come and pew, pew, pew on his chest. Any movie where the light had to get in the bad guy, they all did it the same way, and it looks the same in all the movies.
It does, and that I think that's like this is like comfort food. Like watching this movie is like comfort food, because this is so. How you keep bringing up trope. This is like the ultimate trope for all 80s tropes.
It is comfort food, but I do admit that after this meal, I do want to throw up.
Well, this is the comfort food that you go and eat, and then you're going to spend like 3 hours in the bathroom afterwards. Like, you enjoyed it at the moment, but then afterwards, you just like regretting life for a little while.
Somebody didn't check the temperature on the cook. Yeah. Okay, so after He-Man refuses to kneel, Skeletor tells him, it doesn't matter. You're no longer my equal. I am more than man. And I'm like, well, you weren't a man to begin with. I don't know what you are, but you're not a man, Skeletor.
At best, you were that thing that hangs in like a high school science class. That's probably what you were.
Skeletor says he is now a god, busts with light. just shoots out of him, and his look changes, and he's got some crazy golden headpiece and giant outfit, very ornate. His staff is gold and jewels.
This is very Kirby-esque. This is exactly the kind of thing he would have designed.
Is it?
I thought it was beautiful because for people that don't know much about comics and Jack Kirby and stuff, what makes him so cool is that this stuff looks cheesy as hell, but it's like appealing in a way. It's like so ugly that it's beautiful, but it's like that's like what's so cool about it. It's like, and it doesn't work outside of comics. And I kind of felt, is that why the studio nixed Kirby doing the designs? Because outside of comic books, maybe cartoons, those designs are too elaborate and too weird to work on the screen. Like I would have enjoyed it more personally.
Okay, that's interesting. So he shoots He-Man with beams of light from his eyes and says, "You will kneel." And then we cut away right before it gets interesting.
Right before we got to do the kneel before Zod.
Right. Keeping the Superman theme. We cut away to Detective Lubick hiding in the bushes, watching Gwildor open the key portal. He leaps into frame just in time, and they all get zapped back to Eternia. Cut back to Skeletor's throne room. Everybody shows up, including half of the car, part of the building and the bushes and the bench. Why did this never happen before anytime anybody opened a portal?
Because they didn't have the
Riddle me
budget
that.
for it.
Oh, they didn't have the budget for it.
They saved it for this specific moment. I love that though. I mean, I wish they would have done it more because that was so cool to see.
It is cool, and it made me angry. I didn't enjoy it because I was like, why didn't that happen every other time that it took the surroundings with you?
I
never did.
It would have made a better movie. You could have gone darker with it, if like in the beginning, like, you know, when they first show up the portal, then there's like pieces of these stormtroopers falling as well.
So the troopers in there now completely open fire on them. And before I could even ask myself the question, why did that happen? Like everything went with them. My question is immediately answered. Lazy writing. Because they have places to duck when they're getting shot at. We can hide behind the car.
I mean, when all else fails, you've got to go back to the lazy writing.
So Lubick grabs that shotgun, starts blasting at the troopers and hitting them. Easy peasy. 1, 2, 3. He knocks off a good half dozen of them. Now,
before we get to your complaint, my complaint on it was, how the hell are bullets supposed to go through this armor? This armor is obviously there to protect you from lasers, and a shotgun blast is going to kill these people.
That was my complaint.
Okay, so we're on the same page then.
I'm like, how? Yeah, exactly. So He-Man gets free of his restraints because Skeletor goes to zap him, but he pulls the restraint up and it hits the restraint. It's so stupid. Lazy writing. And he starts to kick troopers' asses. They're just standing around, watching him take them out one by one instead of attacking him all at once. He-Man gets a gun, pushes a giant statue in the throne room over. And if you pay attention, they don't cut away. The statue, when it hits the ground, bounces instead of breaking. It bounces.
Now we just explained it. That's why the Skeletor stuff is there, because he was in the process of redecorating his throne room, and his interior designer decided to come in with styrofoam designs and statues until the real stuff could show up, just to kind of show Skeletor how it's going to look.
Okay. I see. So Karg, Evelyn, and Beastman flee as the fighting is continuing. Smart.
Well, yeah, because they're probably going to die. So either one way or the other. If they win, Skeletor is going to kill them. If He-Man wins, he's probably going to kill them.
So He-Man swings like Tarzan, which is appropriate because that's how he's about dressed now, across and grabs the sword. Even though Skeletor is zapping the shit out of the sword, he's able to grab it and pull it out of its place where it's sitting, hoists it into the air, and yells the traditional, "I have the power," that He-Man would yell when he's transforming. But He-Man is already He-Man. So I was like, what?
That did bother me. I mean, like I said, the few things I know about He-Man, they should have at least one time addressed the Prince Adam thing. And then it would have been nice to address the tiger that he has in the cartoon, the like little like wimpy tiger that turns into the big saber-tooth beast.
Yeah.
That would have been cool to see, like, or even address it. Like, okay, where the hell is it?
So a beam of light shoots into the sword from above as he's yelling. He-Man now tells Skeletor, it's always been between you and me, like between us. It's always been about us. And Skeletor, who has done nothing but yell at everyone to keep He-Man alive this entire fucking movie, tells He-Man he aches to smash him out of existence and drive his cursed face from his memory forever.
You will no longer stand between me and my destiny.
I will. I told you it was always between us.
Oh, I ache to smash you out of existence, to drive your cursed face from my memory forever. Yes! Let this be our final battle!
Bitch, why are you changing your tune now? You wanted him alive this whole fucking movie.
That one makes sense though, because if you are an egomaniac of a villain, you want to kill the son of a bitch. You don't, especially like you cannot trust your henchman. That's obvious. So it could have been like, not that I want him alive. It's just more like, no, I know you're too stupid to do the job. So bring him to me and I'll do it. So that makes sense to me. It was a little cheesy, but it did make sense to me.
So then now Skeletor does a little more monologuing and He-Man finally says what we've all been thinking. He says, enough talk. Skeletor says, yes, let this be our final battle.
That was
Okay.
cool. At the same time, I was, hoping Skeletor would have been the thing of, saying something like, yes, enough talk, because you're really struggling on the accent, buddy. I want to help you out. We'll give you a break. Let's do the fight scene now.
I've got Rosetta Stone in my trailer. So they clash sword and staff in a bright splash of light and begin to battle with each other. This is what we have been, I was going to say ramping up for, but it's not. We were napping for, waiting for some action.
We were napping up for it.
And what's funny to me in this scene, while they're battling around the throne room, clashing sword and staff together, fighting, is the lights changing behind them like they're at a rave. It's like red, blue, white, red, blue, white, like the whole time they're fighting.
It was weird. I mean, like, I love this scene. I absolutely love it. This is another one of my favorite scenes of the movie with the battle. But like, yeah, when you say that, you kind of, instead of the music that they played, you almost wanted that like oots, 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 oots going on. and they're both dressed for it. I mean, a guy in a cape and gold outfit with a mask, and then you got another guy in a leather diaper and a cape.
So He-Man breaks Skeletor's staff with his sword, and he transforms back into his little old self with his black cloak and white skeleton face. He's down on his knees in front of He-Man at the edge of a very deep ravine inside the castle, like you said.
Could have been prevented with rails.
So He-Man says, it's over. This is it, because He-Man's going to be the bigger man and not kill Skeletor. He's like, let's call it a day. We're done. Skeletor grabs his sword and attacks He-Man. They only fight for about 30 seconds until Skeletor falls off the ledge. Little anticlimactic there.
What did you expect from a 30-second fight scene? Of course, it's going to come a little early. So
sounds like a personal problem. And why the cavern in the throne room? Well, that question was finally answered so that we could get this death scene.
So was this lazy writing?
100%. The laziest.
You heard it here first, folks.
Oh, I don't think this is the first time they've ever heard that.
No, probably not.
This is not a hot take. What was funny to me about this scene, none of that. That was all fine. As he's falling backwards down into the pit, his mouth doesn't move. And we hear, all the way down for like 15 seconds till he's like the size of an ant, screaming, and his mouth is not open. It made me laugh. I was like, really, movie? You couldn't fix that?
I have no explanation for that one. By this point, I am out of explanations in the movie.
Instead of being out of fucks to give, you're out of explanations to give.
There's only so much defending of these movies that I can do, people. at a certain point, I get burnt out.
You're doing God's work. You're trying. So the giant hole over the throne room now closes, and the force field around the sorceress disappears, and she's suddenly back to normal, looking like Monica's mom. Detective Lubick opts to stay in Eternia and retire there. So he's sitting up next to the sorceress. He's got this hot babe standing next to him. He's dressed in whatever Eternia royalty garb. And he's like, yeah, I'm just going to stay here. Why go back?
Of course he's going to stay. I mean, like after like his thoughts, his dirty, nasty thoughts about the key, he's going to want to stay in that place that invented it.
So the sorceress has obviously healed Julie because she's fine. And we know no scene of that, no explanation. She's just there and she's fine. Gives her a glowing orb to remind her of Eternia. After Julie's sort of tearful goodbyes with everybody, Gwildor activates the key after asking Julie and Kevin, are they sure they want to go back to where they were exactly in time? Are you sure? They're like, yes, just send us back. And my mind went, oh, okay. I see what he was trying to do here. And then I went, okay, how did he know about her parents dying? How did he know? Gwildor didn't see the picture. That was Karg.
Maybe this was like one of those deleted scenes they needed to include because maybe he was the,
The
one
director's-
responsible for the plane crash. There's this dark undertone of like, he's the one that caused the plane crash. And he's like, hey, I want to make it up to you. All right, I killed your parents.
So the hole in limbo opens up and Julie and Kevin leave. Julie wakes up in her room, goes downstairs and finds her parents in the kitchen. She tells them, don't get on the plane. I want to hang out with you today. And they try to tell her, oh, don't worry about it. We'll be fine. So she grabs their keys and what looks like a map, and I don't know what else, and runs outside in her nightgown and socks to stop them from going.
Which is the sign of an obvious crazy person. So I'm assuming the end of this movie should have been she goes into the insane asylum for a little while.
But this is what tells me they're in California, because that's where Catalina is.
Ah, I didn't catch that.
And they were going to use his little puddle jumper plane to hop on over to Catalina.
Okay. I was too small a child to know any of the stuff in the 80s. I mean, like I was around in the 80s, but like I wasn't paying attention, and I certainly didn't have any female friends of that age. Was her nightgown a typical thing for girls in the 80s? Because I feel like the movies that I was watching with girls in the 80s, they were wearing far less.
She was dressed as a 17, 18-year-old like she was 9.
That's kind of what I thought. I mean, I know this is a kids movie, but every movie I've seen that's been set in the 80s, that is not what they're wearing. I mean, I've seen like half shirts with, boobs hanging out and
Yeah, that wasn't a teenager. I mean, unless you were Amish or super conservative, maybe you're wearing that, but not typically. No, you'd be like 9 or 10. And it was really weird too, because I pay attention to shit like you did. I was watching the nightgown. She goes running out in the street and her tits are bouncing, albeit she's got tiny ones, but they're bouncing. So I'm like, if you're gonna show a close-up on her tits bouncing, why even have her in this childish nightgown? She's clearly got the titties. Just put her in something more age appropriate. She runs out and in the middle of the street in her socks, which very much bothers me. And she bumps into Kevin, who's holding the orb that she was given by the sorceress. So that was weird.
That did bother me too. Like, how did he get it when they gave it to her?
Maybe the same way that they lost the key when they went through limbo, even though Gwildor had a hold of it.
Ah, so the Hook lost it.
Blame it on the
There's
hook. So the music swells and they both realize that they remember everything that happened. Oh my God, it was real. And Kevin holds up the little orb and we zoom in on it. And then we see Castle Grayskull. And then He-Man appears and holds his sword up and yells, I have the power. And then there's a flash of light, roll credits, over space, like Superman again, the end.
You said the end. Did you stay for the end credit scene?
Sir, I did not, because I had sat through so much.
I never even knew there was an end credit scene. So the only reason I watched it, well, okay, I didn't watch it, I skimmed it, but I got to it because I was like, okay, I never ever knew there was an end credit scene to this movie.
I didn't know that. What did I miss?
Skeletor pops out of the lava or ooze or whatever the hell that is. It looks like
Wait, this is at the very, very end. All the credits roll.
yes, all the
Okay.
credits roll. So this is like pre Marvel people. This is like end credit scene pre Marvel, and this like pink. I don't know what it is. It looks like almost the slime from Ghostbusters 2, but then it also kind of looks like lava. He pops up all wet, and he says, "I'll be back."
Oh my God.
It was actually kind of cool, especially because it gave me the chance to say, "No, you won't."
No, you won't. Holy shit.
This movie is like how old? I mean, you're the math whiz. I'm not.
Oh, right. If I'm the math whiz, we're all in trouble.
This is at least like 30 something years old.
Well, 87. So,
Yeah,
I mean, come
so-
on.
And all this movie's been out that long, and I had no idea that there was an end credit scene. This is like discovering like that piece of Halloween candy from 3 years ago that you didn't know you still had somewhere in your pocket. You're like, oh, cool, I can eat this.
Only if it's a Jolly Rancher. Those stay good forever.
I beg to differ. You've never eaten a 3-year-old Peep. The crunchiness is amazing. Peeps are like Twinkies. They don't ever spoil. They will be around
Oh.
forever.
So you're going to go back for the titties and the nightgown. I'll go back for the end credit scene. All right. Did we miss anything you wanted to point out?
No, I think we addressed everything I can think of. I mean, I kind of interjected.
Okay. So question 1, and you kind of touched on this already, but I wanted to know, when you were younger, were you into the He-Man cartoons, comics, or toys, and which ones? And we can go through them if you skip any.
I did play with the He-Man toys a little bit as a kid because I had a couple of friends. So we used to live in these apartments when I was a kid, and then Guy, a couple of doors down from us, had a bunch of He-Man toys, and I would play with his stuff. And then
I'm sorry, a guy. How old was
well,
this
okay,
person?
we'll say a kid. I'm not going to say a guy because that's going to make it even creepier in my life.
Come
than
on
it
over to
already
my
are.
apartment and let's play with toys, little boy.
Come on in, play with my He-Man.
All right. So anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But so there was him, and then when I was a little bit older, there was another friend that was into He-Man, and that's when the movie had already come out for a few years, and we've watched it. I do remember having 2 He-Man toys. I don't remember what they were from because I honestly thought they were from the movie. Because I thought the movie released a series of action figures that had not this typical mold that all He-Man toys have. And it had like the action pose, like you raise one arm and then the other arm would go up and stuff like that. I vaguely remember, I know I had it, I just don't know if it was He-Man or not. I'll be honest with you, I never played He-Man with it. I was more a wrestling nerd, so I turned him into a pro wrestler and had my WWE ring, and he'd wrestle other people.
Well, if he was wearing his diaper, he'd be fine. He'd fit in.
He had pants too. That's why I was always thrown off by the He-Man part, because like He-Man doesn't wear pants.
Prince Adam did.
So maybe it was Prince Adam. I don't know.
So had you ever watched the 1983 2-season run of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe cartoon, or the He-Man and She-Ra movie at the end of that run in 85?
No, I have not. The closest I came was I was going to watch the He-Man and She-Ra Christmas special this past Christmas because I was desperate for Christmas stuff to watch. It's cheesy, it's 80s, I might enjoy it, but I never pulled the trigger on it.
So what about the 89-90 New Adventures of He-Man, where he's kind of in space? Did you ever see that?
No, we didn't get it in our, because our area, there's quite a few cartoons that happened between 89 and about 92, 93, when they were still doing syndication.
Okay.
So we did not get, and that was one of them because I wanted to. And now that you mention that, I believe that is what the toy was that I had, was the He-Man in space. That would explain the pants, the gold boots, and he had some kind of weird space stuff. So thank you for fixing my memory.
You're welcome. You'll get a bill. So Masters of the Universe on Netflix, 10 episodes, was a reboot in 2021. It was also a reimagining, which I saw online. All the, for lack of a better term, nerds out there, comic and cartoon He-Man nerds, are raving about it, saying they didn't mind that it was different. Have you heard of that?
I've heard the mixed reviews. I've heard people say they love it. It's amazing. I've heard people say they hated it because of like, I guess someone said He-Man is barely even in it. Like he doesn't appear enough in it.
Oh, interesting.
So that one, because I believe you, because you're talking about the one that Kevin Smith is behind, correct?
I'm not sure who's behind it.
Okay, because I believe there's 2 cartoons on Netflix. There's a more child-friendly one, and then there is one that Kevin Smith is behind that is actually a sort of reboot / extension to the original series.
5 episodes called Revelation.
That is the one I am thinking of. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, that's the one I've heard the most about. The Masters of the Universe one, that one I haven't seen yet. So now that I know that it is really good, I may actually go check it out. My first He-Man cartoon.
Okay. And then the last one I had on my list was She-Ra did well also in her own spinoff. And I guess there was some Cartoon Network stuff of He-Man and She-Ra either together or separate. 2002 to 2004, Cartoon Network. I wasn't watching Cartoon Network back then, so I couldn't tell you.
That one I actually didn't even know about. I remember because Cartoon Network was doing at that time a bunch of reboots of old 80s classics.
Yes.
I watched some of the Thundercats one, which was really good, but I did not know about the He-Man one, to be honest with you.
Well, that's all I had on my list as far as, and for me, I wasn't young enough to be playing with dolls and toys and such, but I had younger male cousins, which I mentioned on Ninja Turtles, and younger sisters who were still into dolls and such. And so I'm sure we had some around the house, but I never played with them and I never watched the cartoons, but I was aware of He-Man. So when this movie first came out and Dolph Lundgren, I had been obsessed with since Rocky IV previous, like a year or two. So I was, of course, I'm watching He-Man. But that's my knowledge of all that. Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, I'm 41 years old and I'm still obsessed with toys. I mean, if I had them right now, I'd still be playing with those things. So I never grew up. I am still a Toys R Us kid.
That's true. That's very true. All right. Question 2. If you could go back to casting this movie, what character would you remove or replace, and how would you fix this movie? Would replacing somebody do it? What would you do to make this better?
I mean, I think this is a question that we pretty much answered throughout the entire review of this. I would have obviously dropped all of the Earth stuff. So none of those people would have even been there.
Oh, okay. Okay.
We did not need any of that. It was fun for what it was, but we didn't need it. More on just the Eternia stuff. Obviously, the Prince Adam. I would have brought in your favorite character of Orko. That would have been great. Maybe dressed She-Ra. Just kind of like turn it into like a love letter to essentially He-Man fans.
Okay.
Because I think that's kind of what I feel bad about is that even I'm not a fan, I respect my fellow nerds out there. If you're into something and they don't give it the proper treatment, it does kind of piss you off a little bit. I feel like this movie did that. I mean, you can appreciate it for what it was, but
it wasn't what it could have been.
No, I would compare this to like, okay, if we got other He-Man movies, like better quality He-Man movies, I would equate this to essentially the Godzilla 98 of He-Man movies. It's good for what it is, but this is not a faithful adaptation of anything.
Fair points, all. So for me, all this movie was missing was a better plot, a different script, a different director, better central characters, and possibly Chewbacca.
I think Chewbacca was in the movie. I honestly do. I think, I mean, like, where do you think he got his leather underwear? He killed, skinned, and like just, did all the stuff to make Chewbacca's skin into the leather underwear. So technically, he is in the movie. And once again, I got to throw this in there. Once again, Chewbacca is in a supporting role as he's carrying around a dick with him.
He's literally a supporting role. So question 3, we're going to play Marry, Fuck, Kill, 2 rounds.
Oh, Lord. Okay.
Okay, round 1, we're going to go with the men's is. We got, hey, just suspend it.
No, I just like with me, like there's literally like, I don't know.
Men's first. All right, here we go. Marry, Fuck, Kill. He-Man, Kevin, and Skeletor.
Thank you for putting Skeletor on there.
I had to just take a second because of Kevin. So He-Man, Kevin, Skeletor, Marry, Fuck, Kill, go.
Okay, I'm going to kill He-Man.
Too oily for you?
Too oily for me, too rough for me. I mean, he's going to be like a powerhouse, but that is the literal definition of a power top.
All right.
So he's too rough for me. Kevin is at least feminine enough that I can put a wig on him and pretend he's a woman. So I'm okay. I can handle that one. And
so okay. Wait. So you're killing He-Man.
Yes.
And what are we doing with Kevin? Marry or fuck?
Fucking Kevin.
Okay.
Only because I will marry Skeletor. Because he's got the power. I like his attitude. I can help support him by getting him better henchmen. I feel like we're a good connection together. So that I think that would be a good thing. I would have fucked Skeletor, but it's like I don't know how bone on bone is going to work, if you know what I'm talking about.
So for me, for the men's I'm going to marry He-Man because he's right up my alley, and I can have that shit ongoing. I'm marrying He-Man.
Right up your alley. That's what she said.
I'm I'm fucking Skeletor because I'm curious. It's a one-off, and I gotta know.
Okay, that could bring a whole new meaning to the phrase "curiosity killed the cat."
And I'm killing Kevin because 2 seconds of his whiny "I'm not Andrew McCarthy" ass, I couldn't take it.
I get that. I get that. In my mind, fucking Kevin literally would be like 30 seconds of, all right, I'm done.
30 seconds.
I'm not
Give
giving
yourself a little credit.
Well, I mean, well, no, I mean, like, I'm cutting back on that one. I'm like making that one quick. And then I'm going to leave him the money on the nightstand and just say, like, you're on your own, bud.
All right, round 2, marry, fuck, kill. We have Evelyn, Julie, and Tila. Go.
Okay, before I answer, how old am I in this scenario?
Now.
Okay, well then.
And Julie is of age. We're going to assume she's 18 because she's
Okay.
graduating high school.
Okay, thank you. Because I was going to say.
Yes, she's an adult is how I'm taking it.
Okay. Oof. Okay. Well, obviously we're killing Tila. I mean, I think we all wanted to do that from the beginning of the movie, so I'm living out the fantasy there. The second, that's a toss-up, man, because Evelyn is gorgeous. I mean, those eyes, everything about her. So I don't know if I want to marry her or just fuck her. I mean,
well, think about her attitude. You want to live with that for the rest of your life?
Don't all men have to live with that?
No.
Oh my God, if the people listening to this could see the death stare that I got for a second. It was priceless. It was worth it. Okay, I'm going to marry Julie because she seems like she's the marrying type. Nice. We get the one night stand with Evelyn, and then we go marry the nice girl. Doing the reverse of what women typically do, of hook up with the bad boy and marry the nice guy.
Okay. I like it. So for me, I'm fucking Evelyn just because she's beautiful, but she's got a bad attitude, and I am not going to chain myself to that for the rest of my life. I'm killing Julie because she's just a whiny little she nothing. She doesn't contribute anything. For some reason, her story in life for this is pivotal to the plot of the movie, but I thought she was very boring. I couldn't care less about her. So she's gone. And I'm marrying Tila simply because this bitch is in the military. She gonna be gone, deployed all the time, working with her dad. I'm never gonna have to see her. So it'll basically be like I'm, free pass.
And then you get that military money coming in.
Exactly. But I don't have to deal with her because she's not there.
Okay. I see your logic.
So there you have it. Marry, fuck, kill. All right. So that is going to wrap up our discussion on 1987's Masters of the Universe. So if anybody out there is interested in watching Masters of the Universe after we've completely spoiled it for you, or if you want to rewatch now to look for Pig Boy and Julie's Floppin' Titties, you can check it out free on Tubi, free on Pluto TV, and on Amazon Prime. And that was at the time of this recording. So whenever you're listening to this, who knows where it'll be. All right. Thank you, sir, for joining me today. I very much appreciate it.
It's always a pleasure.
And we want to thank all of you for listening. And until next time, goodbye.
Hey, listeners, Drive-In Dave here saying we know you have a lot of options when it comes to podcasts. So we want to thank you so much for listening to ours. Please be sure to follow us on all your social media platforms. Join us in the Bad Movie Conversation. We're on Facebook with a Let's Talk Turkeys page, as well as a discussion group where you can chat with other people who also love bad movies. We're also on Instagram at Let's Talk Turkeys, all one word. Plus, we're on Twitter with the handle at Gobble Podcast. That's GOBBLEPODCAST. And of course, you can always email us direct at Let's Talk Turkeys, all one word, at yahoo.com.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.